Ms. Snyder is filling in as the city clerk this evening?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, give me just a second. It's going here, just a second.
Take your time. I just didn't want to ask Miss Domingo to do something. It's Miss Snyder.
All right, we're live on YouTube. I don't have my agenda right in front of me. Who's first?
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and call to order and we'll proceed down there. The first presentation will be by, it's on the Albion Safe Neighborhoods Project Update, Harmony Ymca Guzmal. I know I just butchered her name. MSU Extension. Okay. Call this 20 July regular council meeting for the city of Albion to order. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd ask folks to mute their cell phones, silence their cell phones, and I'll ask Ms. Snyder, Assistant City Manager, to read the roll.
Councilmember Clark, Reed, Smith, Lawler, Spicer, Williamson.
Here.
Spicer's
Spicer's
here.
Mayor's here.
Yep, I saw you, Council Spicer.
Thank you.
Okay. First item is the approval of the agenda. Councilman Smith had brought something to my attention. Is he still trying to connect, City Manager?
He is, Your Honor. He is having problems with his computer.
Okay. So the one item that Councilman Smith asked to modify the agenda under the consent calendar, the review and filing of the June 2020 financial reports. We'd like to have those removed, and in the future, don't put monthly financial reports on the consent calendar. We'd actually like to get you and or Mr. Mead to give us some sort of review on the financial reports as opposed to just, because I have a hard time making sense that I'm not a whiz with finances, and I know Councilman Smith has a little bit issue with them too. So that's the one change. Are there any other changes for the agenda? Okay. I move that the agenda be approved with the removal of the June financial reports for review and file. May I have a second? Councilwoman Reed, you second?
Yes, but I need to ask the question. Are you saying don't put them in there at all or just don't go through?
We want to have them in the packet, but we also want to have a presentation slant brief by Mr. McCleary slant Mr. Mead so we can have a better understanding and ask questions.
Yes.
Okay. So I see Councilman Smith has joined us. So the motion before us is to approve the agenda with the modification to remove the review and file of June 2020 financial reports from the consent agenda. Been moved and seconded. Ms. Snyder, please call the roll.
Point of information, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Where did you intend to put the financial? So if you're currently, as we review it, you're taking it off of the consent agenda. Where are you putting it? If we were to approve it the way you've said it, where does it go? Because currently it won't go anywhere, and so we wouldn't be able to discuss it.
It'll have to be added to a future agenda with somebody to present to council, because it's not in our agenda to have a discussion on it, and that's what Council Smith and I are asking for.
We will place that on the next council agenda.
Okay. So it's moved and seconded. Ms. Snyder, please read the roll.
Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. First up is the presentation Albion Safe Neighborhoods Project Update by Harmony from the MSU Extension Office.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's really nice to see you all again. It's been a while. Is my audio working all right?
Yes.
Great. If I could have the screen sharing capabilities, then I'll show some slides, please. Okay, thank you. All right, start this. Okay, so we have a lot to report. You might recall that back in December, we held a public workshop at the Housing Commission offices in the city, and that was a great turnout. And we were able to gain a lot of input from that. And so since then, we've been through a lot, including a hiatus for a few months because of COVID-19, and now we're fully online and heading right towards a public showcase in August. And so this is why I wanted to get on the agenda. And so thank you again for that. Thank you to our small steering committee. And Chief and Amy have been helping really since May get this project online and going to where we need it to be. And thanks to everyone who came to our workshop and has participated in Photovoice and in the survey so far. Much appreciated. So the purpose of this Safe Neighborhoods project is it's a public engagement project backed up with research done by Michigan State University all around having to do with effective change with our public health, safety, and welfare in Albion. And we want to achieve this through improved environmental design, reasonable levels of policing, and increased community engagement. And you'll see what all that means in a quick moment. So the SEPTED is basically what the Safe Neighborhoods project entails, and SEPTED stands for Crime Prevention through Environmental Design. And we've partnered that also with the planning topic of placemaking because they're closely tied. So it's all about creating and preserving great places that are safe, that we're working to reduce crime through changes to our public areas, streets, yards, sidewalks, alleys, roadways, through lighting and landscaping, et cetera. I've got a few examples here to show you in a moment. Crime prevention through environmental design, SEPTED, if you're not aware, has four main elements. There's surveillance, accessibility, territoriality, and then quality environments. And these four elements are what we work towards with changes to our built environment. I'll show you just a few examples of each of these, starting with surveillance. Are people actually out there on the street or looking from their homes? Are they able to detect suspicious activity? Are there good lines of sight? So this surveillance is all about how to facilitate observation of what's going on out on the street. Here's some examples in the upper left of before and after with changes to lighting types. There's no shadow in the after parking lot. Also, the use of cameras on private sites can mitigate or reduce crime. And an example of a storefront at the very bottom, this is all about surveillance, being able to see inside the store, and people who are inside the store being able to see outside. And so really limiting the signage that you can see here in these orange squares, making them minimal so that you can actually see outside and see inside. These are just critical pieces of the surveillance part of oh, this is all out of whack. So lighting is a key part of SEPTED as well. I apologize for my photos. Cameras and lighting everywhere that it is needed. This is just an example of, again, parking lot lighting. Quickly, for surveillance, addressing surveillance issues, the same color car parked under three different types of parking lot lighting. And you can see the middle one is actually the one that allows for the best surveillance and view. And so it all depends on the type of lighting that the city or homeowner would want to invest in as well for SEPTED. And then for surveillance purposes, for our business owners and people who use businesses, take a look at that. This is a floor plan of a very simple store on the upper left. And you can see the cash register in the upper left of that square where that's located. The gray bars are actually shelving. And you can see in that upper left example of the store, the front window by doorway A is actually blocked by a gray shelf. And so changes with SEPTED for the interiors of our stores and our buildings can look like what we see in the bottom right, which is the cash register is moved up towards the front. The shelving is moved so the window is not blocked. There are mirrors in each corner, and the person working the cash register can have a clear line of sight down every aisleway, and there's a camera. So these are just quick changes, low-cost changes that business owners can make to reduce crime. Again, a little bit more about surveillance and what we would be looking for in the city. Improved lines of sight for people so that we can see where we would like to make sure that we are safe and that there's no crime happening. That has to do a lot with landscaping. You see in the upper left corner, removing landscaping that blocks lines of sight from windows. The middle photo showing a child on a bicycle and a person on a porch has a clear line of sight out to the roadway, so there's no landscaping blocking it. And then the bottom photo you see here, the bottom drawing, shows a person walking their dog along a wall that they cannot see through. And so there's someone sneaking into or out of a window there. If that wall were to be able to be seen through, it'd be less likely for crime to happen there. Crime would be reduced. So that's the surveillance part of SEPTED, the first element. Accessibility. This is another element we're looking at in Albion. This is where you try to make offenders feel like it's just too risky for them to commit crime here. You want to limit their free access to properties, neighborhoods, and downtowns. You do this through fencing, locks on doors, landscaping types, signage. You can see this middle photo shows just where people are storing their garbage containers, allows someone to get up on a rooftop and get into a building. You try to mitigate those types of, stop that type of access. You also have speed bumps. You have great landscaping with clear lines of sight. Again, that accessibility, trying to reduce the feeling that a criminal offender could actually get away with it here. And signage. Signage is always good. Territoriality, this is where you have a sense of ownership and community and where you live, and you do that through landscaping, good maintenance, art and decorations, and signage. You do see a lot of these examples in many cities of territoriality, and it really is a crime deterrent. Even the most simple holiday decorations in our front yards show those potential criminal offenders that someone does live here, someone is watching, is taking care of the property, and it's more likely that that offender will move on. Quality environments, that fourth element of SEPTED. This is where you just want to see well-maintained yards, streets, sidewalks, alleys, parks, trails, and facades. Criminal offenders will likely move on when they see something that is being kept up. And there is proof for that. Now, the placemaking part comes into the Safe Neighborhoods project for Albion. This is more of a planning field, and you'll find this probably in your city master plan where placemaking is supported, where changes are made to the built environment or new activities are brought in, or maybe a combination of both, just to make a great place where people want to live, work, play, hang out, see friends, in a socially distant kind of way, of course, now. And then placemaking, there are three main types of it. The tactical, which is very low cost, low effort, but very fun, like the chessboard you see on the lower left. There's creative placemaking that always incorporates arts, theater, and music. And then strategic, which is larger budget, requires longer term funding and planning, like you see here, an example of making a place with putting up a new house where there used to be one that had burned down. So kind of infill, larger planning projects. So the three types of placemaking really bring us to a juncture with SEPTED, because we hope to accomplish through the Safe Neighborhoods project some policies for the city to consider that reduce crime and just increase a sense of place wherever you go in your neighborhoods. And then we're also at MSU, we're looking at how to promote vehicle and pedestrian circulation that inhibits crime and just promote public safety in general. We are looking at existing planning efforts for Albion and seeing where we can leverage resources into promoting SEPTED in the future in the city, and build on your cultural assets and strengthen genuine neighborhood features. That's the critical part of safe neighborhoods as well, to build on what is already a quality feature throughout all your neighborhoods and downtown. And then of course, supporting businesses through this. So the policies that we hope to have come out of Safe Neighborhoods will help you as a city council and other leaders to look at some low cost, high impact SEPTED techniques to address where crime is occurring and hopefully to reduce that crime. And so we will also, as an MSU team, provide resources that residents, renters, landowners, everyone else in the city can access to make changes where they live to reduce crime just through changing the way that their property looks. And again, there are always placemaking resources and opportunities out there to do that tactical or creative or strategic placemaking. So the team, MSU, MSU Extension, and the National Charette Institute at MSU, along with the city, have some 4 main steps that we've been going through. And we're kind of almost wrapping them up here at the end of the summer. We've looked at crime data, which I'll show you some examples here in a moment, and analyzing crime data against aerials of the neighborhoods and the downtown to see exactly where crime is happening and what does that built environment look like and how can it be changed in order to reduce these crime levels. So that's step number 2, that analysis. 3 is the public engagement, and I've got a little bit more about that, the surveys and the Photovoice that we want everyone to participate in. And then finally, 4, the MSU team will provide the city and the steering committee with policy recommendations based on all of this, all the public engagement and the data analyses. They're not going to be detailed design recommendations block by block by block, but they will be very helpful for knowing how to move forward in the future. Here's the timeline. I'm not going to go through all of this, but it did start in late 2019 when we did have our winter workshop in December. And then throughout the spring and late winter, we did kick off the Photovoice program, which I'll describe in a bit. And we kicked off the survey. And again, there was a 3-month gap when COVID-19 came on the scene, and we had to we were all reassessing what we were doing with work and family. So now being June, July, we have transitioned it all to be back online, and we're ready to move forward. So the week of August 24th is the virtual showcase that will wrap up this whole Safe Neighborhoods project. So, and into the fall, the steering committee becomes partners with the city of Adrian and Howell as a kind of SEPTED cohort, because all 3 cities are going through this project at the same time, but separately. So it all starts here. It all ends here. This is our website. The address is at the bottom of the screen, and it has everything that we need here to promote this project. It has the survey, the Photovoice button to click on, and then how to learn more. So please visit our site. I'll make sure that you all have that active link. I'll put that in the Q&A before I leave. But again, please visit our website. It has all sorts of information on it. And then we have a Facebook page. So find us, like us, share us on Facebook. It's just a search for Albion Safe Neighborhoods if you are on Facebook. And we put updates up there every few days. And I do tag all sorts of organizations and police department and city groups on that. And hopefully people are sharing us around. Okay, so that's the project overview and what we've been up to and what we're looking at. Here are some actual maps. So from the December workshop and from the surveys to date, we have some people's Albion residents' perceptions of safety. Here are the areas on the left in red where people have the perception that they are not safe if they were to be out there walking around. And then on the right, we have a map of the city with areas in blue are where people feel safe. So it's interesting to note little geographic differences there between where people feel unsafe and where they feel safe, and then compare that to actual crime data, which thank you to Chief Kip, we were able to get data for property crime and violent crime from the years 2016 to 2019. Here is a bar chart of those years depending on the 4 different types of property crime, with arson in blue, burglary in orange, larceny, theft in gray, and yellow being motor vehicle theft. We're gonna map those out in crime hotspots. So the darker the red, the more likely there was a crime reported. And so you can see here down towards downtown area for property crime in 2016. As I flip through the years 2016, 17, 18, 19, follow the red dots. You can see the trend of where crime has moved or not moved. All right, so those are our trends for property crime. I'll go through it one more time. 2016, 17, 18, and 2019. Okay, interesting compared to where people actually feel safe as well, if you go back to those perception maps. Now, violent crime, aggravated assault, homicide, rape, and robbery are all listed here in the bar chart from 2016, 2017, 18 up to 19. And we've mapped those out in hotspots. Here's 2016, so keep your eye on the red blobs, which are the areas most likely to have a violent crime reported in these years. And I will go through each year and you'll see the hotspots move or stay the same. Here's 2016, 17, 18, 19. So you can see trends here. I'll go back and do it one more time. Here's 16 violent crime, 17, 18, 19. Okay, so these are the violent and property crime hotspot maps that we have created. What we are doing now is we have created also focus areas where the city would be able to prioritize areas where they would want to, where you would want to look at implementing some SEPTED changes in the environment and help towards a reduction of those crimes in those areas. So we would provide that in our August showcase and also to our steering committee here eminently for your use. So that's the data piece. Now back a little bit to the final engagement piece, which is Photovoice. You are all invited. Invite your friends, family, colleagues, everyone watching tonight. Please go to our website and click on the Photovoice button and submit 2 photos. One photo of what you are grateful for in your neighborhood and one photo for what you're not grateful for in your neighborhood. And it's not of people, but it's generally of your neighborhood, what it looks like, the built areas, the houses, the streets, the sidewalks, the parks. Share those 2 photos and then tell a story behind it. So I have a picture is worth 1,000 words at the bottom. This can go a long way, this type of engagement, because everyone has almost everyone has access to phones to take pictures nowadays, and it's just a very equitable type of public engagement where everyone can get involved. We're very pleased that we could bring Photovoice into this project. And we do have a small handful who have participated from Albion over the last few months, but we are looking for a lot more. And so please take photos, upload them, go to the link and upload your photos. It's really easy, and then share your story. And you can share your story on a video. You can take a video and upload your video, or by text, or with a poem, or any type of way you want to tell your neighborhood story. It's really helpful, and our city leaders will really appreciate the gallery that we're going to create for the week of August 24th. So that's another thing I really do want to, I'm right at the end here. Save the week of August 24th, because that will be our week-long virtual showcase, and it will be hosted at our website. We will have live presentations on Zoom. This is all online, by the way. So live presentations on Zoom, recorded videos about the project and the data and the maps and policies. And then we will have the photo gallery from Photovoice will be posted in a gallery that everyone can see, everyone can read the stories. And so this will be quite a city showcase, actually, for this project. And we're really excited at MSU and the steering committee to host this. So save the week, August 24th. You don't have to check into the website, 8 hours a day, every day that week, but just, help us promote it, become a part of it yourself as city leaders. And at the end of that week, we will be in touch with all of you to host a city leader roundtable on really what are the next steps for this SEPTED movement. And so we hope that you can save that week, and specifically the days towards the end of that week of August 24th, to become part of that roundtable. The steering committee will definitely be in touch. So if you could please do 4 things on behalf of our steering committee: take the survey yourself, submit 2 photos with your stories, save that week of the online virtual showcase, and participate in that roundtable. And each one ask one. We always say, if everyone watching tonight, could take this website and ask someone to take the survey and submit some photos, that would be super. And again, everything you need is there. There's our website at the end, and I'll put it in the chat. Thank you. My name's Harmony Gamazel, and you were very close, Chairman. Thank you. But again, I'm with MSU Extension, and I do urban and regional planning work, and it's my pleasure to be of service to you. And I can take any questions you might have.
Just a copy of your presentation, because it's got the websites and the specifics, and I can't write that fast. How do we get a copy of your PowerPoints?
I can email it to whomever would share it with all of you.
Okay.
Would that be?
That would be great.
Mr. McCleary? Okay. Super, and I'll put the website link in the chat or the Q&A right now too. So thank you so much for your time. Really, we appreciate it.
Councilwoman Spicer has a question.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for the info. I just wanted to know, in the area that was designated crime, heightened crime, or people were afraid to be in, was there any discussion as to, or ideas present as to why people were afraid? And if so, what could do to alleviate their apprehension about that area?
Right. So we do have that. We do ask them why they felt afraid and that, or not afraid, right? What made them feel that way? That's not part of my analysis tonight. Linda and Elena at MSU are digging more deeply into all that and making sense of those themes and trends. And we will be sharing that information the closer we get to the August showcase, for sure, so that it's more useful, right? To know why people felt safe or didn't feel safe. And then, of course, generally those perception maps are reflective of the real crime data maps. And so it's not that different. So any SEPTED projects that the city moves forward on over the coming year or more, hopefully, can really help with that. But yeah, we'll definitely share all that with you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other
I
council
did put the
members have
website
questions?
link in the chat box for people.
Oh, one other question.
Okay.
Can you basically share the area that the perception was it was more dangerous? I mean, can you, I know I'm probably sure it's on the map. I don't have it. So was it like more on precinct like 1 or 2 or 3, or do you not have that? Can't share that with me.
The only level of info I have tonight is what I showed you. Here are the perception maps again. I don't know if you see it. I think I shared, yeah. So if we can zoom in, I'm going to, can I zoom in a little more? A little bit. So it is the northwest corner of the city where people they feel most unsafe.
Okay.
But we can definitely map that out into precincts for you if you're interested.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I guess I'd
Yeah.
like to know why they feel safe. Is it a lighting issue? Is it or locate? I mean, I guess I want to know, basically, maybe that's included and we'll get that later, but that's just what I wanted to ask. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said just now, that's a very interesting part of that whole survey is knowing why people don't feel safe there. So
Right.
Sure, we'll definitely have that be part of the packet that we unveil at the showcase and that you would
Okay.
have in your hands. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harmony. I really appreciate your time. It was a good brief and very exciting. I mean, lots of really good information in whatever we could do to reduce crime and just as importantly, to make sure that our residents feel they're in a safe location. So thank you.
Thank you. And Chief Kip, thank you again for being so steadfast and supporting this project through all these changes over the past year or so. So thanks to all of you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, I see Ms. Hind is with us. And next up is a presentation, Albion Summer Recreation Camps, the YMCA Kids and Stuff Museum. I've got a little bit of information that was provided to me by Ms. Audrey Jean, but we'll hear from Ms. Hind from the Battle Creek YMCA. You're on mute, Jill. Well, while Ms. Hind is unmuting, I'll go ahead and give you the information that Audrey Dean passed on to me from the Kids and Stuff Museum's perspective. The MOU that was written up and is in place is working. It's being fulfilled. Camp operations, running those camps is not interfering in any way with the day-to-day operations of the museum, and it has not limited the capacity for the other guests. Some of the staff are also parents with their children involved in the camp, and they're happy with it. The children are being very well taken care of, and the children appear to be happy. Ms. Dean passed on her compliments to the YMCA staff that are there in the museum operating it, and they are very thankful that the city has this option and they're able to participate with it. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Hind. I think what Ms. Hind is going to tell us is that the camp is moving along smartly. We have roughly a dozen youth enrolled. Everything is to have a new startup. You have a little hiccup there, here and there, and that's all been worked through. And so far it's been successful. And that's about all I can say. I don't know if Mayor Pro Tem, if you have any experience or comments or observations.
I was just going to ask if one of the meeting organizers could unmute Jill. So either Scott or Haley or.
I've been trying, no luck. So looks like
Okay.
maybe she got it down.
Oh, I think she's.
Ms. Hind.
It says you're not muted anymore, Jill. Are you there?
Well,
Maybe we can come back to her.
yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So I've given you all the information that I have. It appears to be going along fine. We'll move to the next presentation by Mr. Lilly, Mark Lilly, on the Calhoun County Parks Millage ballot measure. And he's representing the Friends of Calhoun County Parks. If Mark Lilly's with us. I see muted at present.
Okay, for some reason it kicked me out for a second. Well, thank you, Mayor Atchison. Just real briefly, I'm with Friends of Calhoun County Parks, and on the August 4th election, there is a ballot measure to approve a millage to support the county parks. Currently, Calhoun County does not have any dedicated budget for parks. The maintenance of all the parks in the county is paid for by grants and by donations. And that money is quickly running out. So this would be a 0.2 mil assessment on property in Calhoun County. For the owner of a home worth about $100,000, the cost per year would be $10. So it's a pretty minor amount of money. We realize in the time of a pandemic that every penny counts. So we talked about taking it off the ballot this year and bringing it back another year. But frankly, parks have never been busier. If you go to any county park or the trails, people are out getting their exercise. So we thought this was maybe a good year after all to do it. The millage would generate $730,000 per year. Of that, half would go to the county for its parks, Kimball Pines, Hot Preserve, Historic Bridge Park. But also, many of you probably know the county is building a new county park just outside of Albion. It'll be south of Riverside Cemetery on 65 acres. The plans for that are still to be determined. Because of COVID, everything is slowed down, but hopefully the long-term plan is that there would be a campground. There could be more recreational facilities. There would be a trailhead and restrooms. So Albion would benefit from that as well. 365,000, the other half would go to local municipalities based on population size. And Albion would receive $23,000 per year approximately from the millage to maintain parks within the city limits. One really neat feature of this is you don't have to spend it every year. You could save it and save it until you have a significant amount of money. So if you wanted to redo the roof of the skating pavilion in Victory Park, if you wanted to do improvements in Holland Park, you could save up that money. You can also use it as a match for proposals to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. So you could leverage that $23,000 per year and count it as a match for bigger grant applications. So again, I realize nobody likes new taxes, but this is an opportunity to really improve parks, not just countywide, but especially in Albion. And again, the election is August 4th, a Tuesday, and it's on the ballot, and we would appreciate any support. I'm happy to take any questions.
Mark, how much money did you say? Can you hear me?
Yes. Councilwoman Spicer has her hand up, and then I'll come back to Councilwoman Reed. Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. Let me see my mute. Thank you. So have the parks, I know you said all of Albion's parks, have the parks been identified? Because I think that I know Holland Park has had extensive work and it is still going to be worked on. So I'm thinking, is there money designated for Holland Park, or is it going to cover the other parks that hasn't had as much attention?
That's totally up to the city of Albion. The money would flow to the city of Albion, and however the council decides to spend it, that would be your call.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Councilwoman Reed.
I was just asking, I couldn't hear good. Did he say 32,000?
No, it would be about 23,000 per year to the city of Albion.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Appreciate you coming in and giving your time and supporting a good cause.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Jill, we'll turn it back over to you to finish up with the YMCA summer camps.
All right, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
All right, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I was stuck on mute. We are 3 weeks in. We have 13 kids currently enrolled. I think, Mayor, that you pretty much summed up. It's going well at Kids and Stuff. And we haven't been able to do a few of the things that we hope to do as the summer progresses. We'd like to partner with the White House Nature Center, but due to COVID, that's not a possibility as of yet. And then we have an Albion College student who just started working for the camp. We are not able to work with the fellows for this camp because they cannot work inside this summer, also due to COVID. And I'm working on the food. I think the Meet Up and Eat Up food that's provided is not enough of a lunch for the campers. So we're kind of looking at other options for that. But so far that, and then with the weather being so hot last week, the kids couldn't be outside as much as we would normally like. So other than those kind of minor hiccups, I think it's going really smoothly. I'll have an agreement that our attorney has vetted to the city that will formalize that partnership. And then we're just hoping to continue to work to build other opportunities for youth as the summer progresses. Any questions?
Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. So Jill, the timeline for the summer for the activity was it through the end of July?
No, it's through, since it got started late. The current timeline is through August, to end on August 14th.
Okay, so currently you said you had 13 kids enrolled, and
We have 13.
I think that the number given, that the maximum was it 25 or 30?
It's 20.
Okay, so we're 7 kids away. Okay.
Yep.
So it looks like the money is going to be sufficient enough to sustain the camp through August. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I've had a couple parents ask, I mean, obviously the school year is in flux right now. I don't think anybody knows kind of where that's going. So I've had a couple parents that have asked if we can extend it through the week of August 17th. And I need to finalize that with kids and stuff, but we are willing and able to extend it if that's advantageous for local parents.
Okay, so primarily is it parents who are working that have their kids there, or is it just people who are just bringing their kids there for some summer activity to keep them busy? Do you have any idea about
It's
that?
It's a little bit of both. I would tell you, I think it's predominantly parents who are working, but I think there are also a couple of parents that are just looking for activity for their kids.
Thank you.
Any other questions by council? Thank you very much, Ms. Hine.
Okay, thank you all. Have
All
a good night.
Have a good evening. Okay, next up is Mr. Scott Goodman from Granger. He's going to talk to us about some issues we're having with the yard waste pickups here in Albion, and making some recommendations on what we can do to improve that. Mr. Goodman, welcome. And I called you Goodman. I apologize. It's Mr. Truman, Scott Truman.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Thanks for allowing me to be here tonight. If it's okay, it looks like I can share my screen. All right, so what I come to you before this evening is to talk about some of our yard waste contamination issues. As you know, we started our new agreement in March of this year. And our agreement included trash with a Kirby cart, a blue bag recycling, and unlimited yard waste with a cart, as well as our as one bulk item per month. The pandemic hit us kind of quickly, so Granger was forced to suspend its bulk items collection. I'm just kind of giving a little history here. So as a request from the council and from the city manager, I had the bulk item charges removed from the contract for the first 3 months of our agreement, with the understanding that we would reinstate in June. I just like to happily share that when we lifted our restrictions and we had marketed that, clearly Albion residents heard about it. And even though it was before June, we did start collecting the bulk items again. So we started doing that really in May. The last count that I had, we had collected over 60 of them. Some other points to talk about is, of course, the yard waste itself, which we started in April. We did have quite a few contamination issues from that from the beginning. I had really thought it would work itself out. To my disappointment, it didn't. The contamination issues can continue on with that. It's been really kind of difficult for us to go through all of this. A lot of customer service calls when yard waste wasn't collected. A lot of upset residents about us not collecting it. A fair amount of verbal abuse has been taken by the drivers. We've literally had residents that have buried trash underneath yard waste, and then again kind of use some unsavory comments towards the drivers that I don't care to repeat right now. We've taken as many pictures as we can. The task of that was really overwhelming. It put our routes behind by hours, and thus really defeating our efficiencies of what we were doing. So it's made things really quite difficult for us. We quoted everything for the city of Albion, and I feel still that was a very reasonable rate. It was based on efficiencies of what we were doing with our trucks. And now we're in a situation where that's really been lost, and it's kind of disheartening. So some of the effects of contamination. So several years ago, the DEQ, which is now Eagle, had changed their laws for yard waste disposal. The short of that is that we can't take yard waste to our landfill. We have to take it to a special disposal facility for that. You may recall the city of Albion had a yard waste facility, and it was forced to reduce its services because of the new laws that were placed with that. We currently take the yard waste to a compost site in Jackson. Our contamination has been so bad that we've been warned that our rights to dump at this site could be revoked. As a result of that, we are now taking it to our transfer station, tipping it on the floor, and we are manually sorting it ourselves, which causes double handling, double sorting for this. And it's really, again, defeating our efficiencies. At the yard waste contamination at its highest level should be less than 0.5%. So if you put that into terms of the residents of Albion, almost 2,400, that leaves us with about 12 carts total from the city that could have contamination. I just thought I'd run through some things that are acceptable for yard waste, because the concern is that the residents aren't understanding what really qualifies. So that should be strictly limited to leaves, grass clippings, brush trimmings, and tree trimmings bundled in 4-foot lengths. That's if they're outside of the cart. Unacceptable yard waste is going to be dirt, any landscape materials, trays, liners, netting, trash, plastic, recyclable materials, and anytime our container is over 200 pounds and we can't move it. I have shared already some of the communication pieces that we've created. So here's an example of a Facebook post that has language in it that's verbal or something that they can read to educate. This one is a visual. We also have with it a flyer or oh, I'm sorry, here's our visual. Here's the flyer that was created that can be shared or mailed to residents. We just recently took the step to create a sticky note that kind of lets people know that we couldn't pick up your yard waste today due to these unacceptable items in your cart. As a reminder, only the following unbagged materials should be included: leaves, grass clippings, brush, small trimmings, and that a failure to remove these materials will result in your cart not being serviced on the next collection day. Anytime my drivers have to get out of a truck to do extras, it defeats our efficiency. This will be a long process for us to accomplish with the sticky notes to leave something behind. Finally, I want to share with you just some of the pictures from the yard waste situation. So here's an example of a container that was really overfilled, and it looks like dirt in there and wood chips. And then there's some trash added on top of it as well. This is basically dirt. There are some leaves in there, but this one I can tell is about 3/4 to 2/3 full. Here is more trash. I think that's a rope of some kind that's thrown in. I can see little bits of trash. This is something that I can see was dumped in the back of our container, our truck already. This has plastic bags.
Scott, none of us are seeing the pictures, but we are hearing the description. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know how you. How was that?
Yes.
All right, sorry. So here, let me go back. So this is our first one that's filled with dirt. And then some trash added on the top at the end. This is almost right to the top. Imagine how heavy this would be. My arm can't lift that. And I don't want drivers handling something of this way. This one has more dirt in it, some leaves in it, unacceptable material. This has trash and some kind of a rope stick in it. This one has a plastic bag. This was thrown in the back of our truck. This one has, it looks like sod and feces in it. This one is bagged yard waste, which I really don't understand why somebody would do that. But this has been kind of a consistent one where we've been getting this. This is yard waste bags with more trash, but this was inside the container. This, you can see more plastic inside of the container itself. Just straight up trash thrown in the container. These are clearly landscaping supplies, but the tray and it looks like a flower pot hanger of some kind were in there. There's more trash within this one as well. This may seem like small amounts of trash, but these all add up to a large amount of contamination. This here is cardboard, plastic, more trash, and that looks like a log that was thrown in. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me tonight. And I mean, really what I'm coming to you before today is to share our plight and ask for support from the city to take some of these materials that we've shared with you and use your channels to be able to communicate them. We're now in the dead of summer at a time when often our yard waste problems are, yard waste is much smaller now, but we're still experiencing these problems. Every week right now, we're taking it to the transfer station and sorting, and every week we're finding trash. We've had to add additional trucks to the route as well to be able to compensate for this. We understand that we made an obligation to what we were doing for the city. You know, we also, you know, that anticipation of support from the residents and support from the city.
So one quick question, because I've been asked by some of the residents, hey, they didn't pick it up. Yeah, okay, so I've explained what the issue is. I've had some residents claim, look, there was a single candy wrapper inside of the bin. Are you going to tell me that's more than 1% of the volume? So what is the cutoff? Not that any of it's good.
Right.
But if there is a single candy wrapper in a bin that's quarters full, does that exceed the?
So I appreciate that a resident would share that. One candy wrapper would not exceed the contamination. But Mr. Mayor, so we've taken calls from customer service, and the resident has sworn up and down that it's not contaminated, and they asked us to come back, and we've diverted the truck, and we have, and then we've tipped it, and trash bags are underneath. And then we picked the trash bags out and we set them down, and they've said some really nasty things to the drivers. I understand we're in a pandemic right now and people are stuck at home, because this has been kind of an increasing issue with the treatment of drivers, not just in the city of Albion, but I struggle with how people don't realize what a dangerous job it is for a trash truck driver. You know, it's a top 10 most dangerous job. It's actually number 6. I thought we were top 5, but I'm just troubled by the lack of responsibility that it is. And when somebody throws in a candy wrapper thinking that's okay, we're doing yard waste to make sure that it gets processed correctly. You know, so is one candy wrapper, again, probably it's not the end of the world, but it's when we have so much more, and this has been consistent.
Right.
I shared an address list with you.
Yes, you did. And I was embarrassed to find my address was on there,
well,
which I told you.
I'm going to bring that up, Mr. Mayor.
That's okay. No, I'll own it. And we haven't had any more problems. And it was a piece of plastic that when I put some mulch in there, didn't realize it was plastic. But nope, that was my mistake.
Last week, I had the operations supervisor for that market actually ask me if we could alter the route into 2 separate days because we're having such a hard time. And I told him, I said, I'm meeting with the council. I hope that we're able to get to resolve with this, because I don't want to have to take on the additional expense of communication pieces, mailing, and things of that nature. I mean, it's already been costly for us. It really has.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilwoman Clark.
Could you send those pictures that you just had and so we could put them on our Facebook page? So maybe we can make people more aware of what they're doing and the problem it's causing?
And I've shared these pictures, and I have dozens more. I'm really concerned about creating an animosity with the residents, you know, pointing this out, because I'm already concerned that all the good feelings that I had when we signed our contract and the positive responses I got from the residents, I'm afraid we're losing some of those because of the yard waste contamination. So I've shared the pictures, and I'll reshare the pictures with you. But like I said, I have some real reservations about how much I want to make this look worse. I would really like to look at the positive and say, here's what you should put in. You know, here's how we can move forward together with it. So like the flyer that we put together, it definitely lets people know what you should and shouldn't put into it and what's possible. The note, the sticky note that we've had created, I feel like that's a little more in their face. And we're concerned that if we start putting the sticky notes on there, residents are going to feel like they're singled out, and they might be embarrassed from their neighbors, and there could be some bad side effects with that. We have a long agreement together, and we've been together a long time. And
if you could just blot out the addresses or whatever, if it was possible, that'd be fine. It would, and then that way it wouldn't pinpoint somebody, you know what I mean? But then they would be able to know that, you know, sometimes visual is better. I'm just saying.
I understand, and that's why I tried to. We created some things to go, you know, a different direction that would help with that. I am absolutely willing to share those with you if you'd like to use them.
Well, I have a.
Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. Let me see if I just want to mention that I don't know. I know that there is issues with the residents, but if the drivers could pay a little more attention, because I got a call that said that we had contaminated waste. Well, we didn't put our waste, we didn't put our green lid container out that week. And I said, so she said, oh yeah. I said, well, the driver might've made a mistake because we didn't put ours out. So I know it wasn't ours that was contaminated. So if they could pay a little bit more closer attention to the addresses and make sure that they get it right, because I don't want somebody thinking that we're violating the route procedures and we're not. So I understand that some residents do and don't, and maybe showing it, maybe it'll embarrass people into compliance. I don't know. And I think a lot of times some people just make a mistake. They don't realize they picked up extra trash. But yeah, I think that if we could share it, it would be great. We don't have to have names with it or addresses, but you know, we could just kind of push that this is what you should not be doing. So.
Okay, I'll go to Mayor Pro Tem next, and then Councilwoman Reed. I did just quickly check. If council will go back and look at their email on or about the 24th or 25th of June, that's about the time that I received a bunch of photographs from Mr. Truman, and I forwarded all of those out to all council.
Yep,
so you can have some already. Mayor Pro Tem Williams. You're on mute, sir.
Of course. We're just going to keep saying you're on mute all year long. Hey, so I wanted to underscore a couple of things. I think for one, it's a little bit upsetting that it has to come all the way to council before we're able to do something. I think that before it had to come to council, I feel like something could have happened at City Hall to build some type of awareness campaign around making sure people understood what they could and could not put in their waste, their refuse bins. So I feel bad that Mr. Truman had to come to council to kind of air his grievances out publicly in this format. But going forward, I'm hoping that the city manager will lead at City Hall to kind of help make this awareness campaign work so that people know what they can and cannot put in there, and also put at stake what happens when we don't follow the rules, right? We have a great deal with Granger. We have, residents have been more than happy with the services they've received since we went with them. We saw that during the study session process before we signed this contract. It'd be pretty shameful for us to lose our contract with them or have to renegotiate some terms that don't allow us to take care of waste refuse. So yard waste refuse. So hopefully someone at City Hall can take the mantle and make this a priority.
Councilwoman Reed.
I would very much like that list of things. I got a notice from Granger that I had something in my can other than yard waste. I didn't know what it was because all I had did was cut down some bushes and I had put them in there, the bushes and the leaves. So I did ask your people when they came by the next time what was allowed in there because, my garbage, I have a garbage can and I don't put my garbage in there and I don't have a house number on my house. And I'm thinking that they got my house and the people across the street, which have and instead of me. I think those were the two cans they got mixed up. But I wouldn't even mind them sticking a sticker on if something is in my can that should not be, and they can stick a sticker on there and said you have something in there that should not be. I wouldn't even mind that. So then at least I would know. They could even leave the can with the stuff in it. I could go through and find out what it is. I understand your problem and would very much like to work with you on that.
Appreciate that.
And I like your Michigan State background.
I wasn't sure if I should use it or not.
That's Sparty.
Councilwoman Spicer, did you have a question? Comment?
Yeah, basically just a comment. I guess I want to just thank him for the information. And I think that if we just resent what is allowable to the residents again in that container, that might solve the problem. I mean, you might still get some issues, but I think it might alleviate some of the problems. And for the most part, I think it's probably accidental. People just pick up their grass and clippings and they pick up whatever else is in there. So I think people just need to pay attention to what's going on. I'm hoping we can alleviate this issue for you guys and for the city. So,
and I think as you look at the pictures, even the ones that Mr. Truman showed us this evening, you'll see that there's a fair amount of plastic in some of these, big pieces of cardboard. So I agree. In my case, it was something I didn't realize was there, but some of these is pretty obvious that folks are stuffing things in there. But Mr. McCleary, or is it possible that we could get a public service announcement published in the paper?
We could definitely get something published in the paper. We can also post information on the city's website, on our social media. So there's several avenues we can use.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Truman, thank you very much. Is any other questions or comments by council? Any parting words of wisdom, Mr. Truman?
We'll get through this.
Yes, sir. We will.
This is only the second time in my short career I really faced a big contamination issue. The previous one was a big recycling issue at another community. Working together with the city, we rectified those issues within just a few weeks. And I'm happy to report I've not had a contaminated load from that market since last September. So a little communication between the two of us working together. And I'm very confident that we can rectify this situation and move forward.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Next up is a proclamation honoring one of our community icons, Miss Hazel Elias, on her 75th birthday. Whereas longevity of life has been a blessing for Hazel Maxine Martin Elias, but even more so for our community, which has benefited so much from her wisdom and creativity, her unfailing sense of humor, endless compassion, and the zest for life which she brings to everything she does. And whereas the city of Albion, with gratitude, admiration, and great pride, proudly recognizes one of the most respected and influential members of our community and the many contributions she has made. And whereas Hazel may have been recruited to increase Albion's teacher diversity, during the peak of the civil rights movement. Over the course of her 41 years in the Albion public school system, she proved to be among the finest educators, most successful mentors, and an unstoppable positive force in our community. And whereas Hazel served with distinction on the NAACP Executive Board, as an active board member for the Lewis Chapel AME Church, in the Community Leaders Program, and the Albion College Mentoring Program and Minority Program Services. And whereas she was the 2018 recipient of the Star Commonwealth Stand Tall Award for her dedication to creating positive environments where children and families can flourish. And whereas Hazel Elias has been a personal source of inspiration and voice of reason to multiple generations of families and leaders in the Albion community, we join with grateful community in expressing our appreciation for her boundless love, as we are all blessed to be part of her extended family. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Dave Atchison, Mayor of Albion, and on behalf of the City Council and citizens of Albion, honor Hazel Maxine Martin Elias for her long life and many contributions to Albion, and wish her many more. Dated this 20th day of July, 2020.
Yay!
All right. Okay. Okay. Is Miss Elizabeth Carey with us? Yes, there I see her. She's going to, as the president CEO of Star Commonwealth, is going to give us an update on one of our local treasures, Star Commonwealth.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I can see that I now have sun coming across my face, so I'm going to move just a little bit here. Thank you very much for inviting me to join you this evening. I think it's been a couple of years since I presented in front of the Albion City Council, so thank you for having me. I wanted to do two things this evening. One, give you an update about our the news you've been reading about and what's happening with our residential treatment program. And then I also want to give you an update on all the other things that we are currently doing across Michigan, in our local communities, and also globally. And make sure that I can answer any questions that the council has for me tonight. I also would just like to say, I love that I got to follow the proclamation naming Hazel Elias as an icon, which we all know, and celebrating her 75th birthday. So happy birthday to Ms. Elias. I'm sure you are all aware, given the media coverage, there was a death of a student placed in residential treatment on May 1st in a facility in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And that facility, which is a nonprofit, similar to STAR in terms of it's called Lakeside for Children, was partnered with and managing their program with Sequel Youth and Family Services. The state of Michigan, after their investigation of that death, made a mandate that Sequel Youth and Family Services could no longer operate within the state of Michigan. We also at Star Commonwealth have been working with Sequel Youth and Family Services for 5.5 years. In December of 2014, we began a partnership with them where they hired our residential treatment staff and began to take over day-to-day management. And the reason that we did that is it allowed Star Commonwealth to serve more youth from around the country. Without Sequel, we were only serving children here in Michigan. And as you know, we have a very big and beautiful campus and lots of room. And we wanted to make sure that those students who needed the high-end treatment we could provide could get to us from around the country, and Sequel was able to make that happen. So as of July 1st, the State Department, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the governor's office were very clear with us that we would not be able to continue to operate with our partner, Sequel Youth and Family Services. Our board of trustees terminated our agreement with Sequel. We had made that announcement on July 1st, and what that meant was that we had to begin the wind down of our residential treatment programs. We were operating about 6 different types of residential treatment programs on our campus for both boys and girls from students all over the country. When that decision was made, we had about 135 students currently in care on our Albion campus and about 270 Sequel Youth and Family Service staff serving those children. By the end of this week, there will be no students on our campus. Today, we only have 9, and they're awaiting their final placements. And the majority of those staff from Sequel Youth and Family Services, as the students began to leave, the staff were also began to receive layoff notices. Sequel Youth and Family Services, which is their employer, is ensuring that they have paid compensation increases since July 1st every week for any staff that were willing to stay. They also are paying a stay bonus at the end for any staff that stay until they are no longer needed. And they're offering a severance payment for all staff based on their length of service. And so that's anywhere from 4 to 7 weeks of paid time, including paying that out overtime so that they can continue with health insurance anywhere from 1 to 2 months of additional health insurance coverage. By the end of this week, there will probably be just about 25 staff left on our campus from Sequel Youth and Family Services, and they will be working closely with Star Commonwealth to make sure, as we continue to wind down the program, that we do that appropriately and all of their information gets to us as we do that. In addition, our Board of Trustees has begun to design a process for taking a look at the future of our beautiful campus. For 107 years, we have been delivering 24/7 care on that campus. So this will be the very first time that we do not have active programming in the cottages on that campus. As all of you know, and have probably spent time on our campus, it's about 350 acres of space for programming. And that includes, of course, some of our historical buildings, which is our Chapel in the Woods and our Brooklyn Museum and Gladstone Cottage, which is a Michigan historical site. And then it also has 16 living houses and a couple of schools and a very large recreational facility. So the board is in the midst of creating a process for how they want to make some decisions about our future use of campus. Many people have begun to share with us the ideas that they have about that campus and the way that it could be used, either to serve community here or ways that Star Commonwealth can deliver programming again. And so we are gathering all of those ideas. We'll be putting some business planning processes in place to be able to figure out which ones and maybe multiple ones could be part of our future. So today I don't have answers for that. We are only 3 weeks into the decision and have been focused on the young people on our campus and ensuring that they had as quick and as therapeutically designed transitions as possible. The good news is, and what I want to share with you today, and I hope that as council members and guests on today's council meeting, that you'll be able to say this as well whenever this question comes up. Star Commonwealth is not closing. So the 501c3 of Star Commonwealth, 107 years, based here in Albion, but with offices in Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, and in Harper Woods, is still here. And I'm going to share with you a lot of the things that we're focused on doing right now and what strategically we have been planning to do over the next couple of years. And so I want to be able to reiterate that, because the concern, and certainly media has done a lot of coverage and they don't always get it right. And so the questions people ask us now are, is all of Star closing? What's happening to Star Commonwealth staff? You know, what are you going to be doing in the future? So I wanted to be able to share some of that with you today. So let me do that. Let me run you through some of the things that Star is currently doing and things that we are looking forward to doing. And then I'd be glad to answer any questions that anyone has. Without Sequel Youth and Family Services and our residential treatment program, Star Commonwealth still has about 50 full-time employees, and they are based across Michigan, with a few actually out of state. The pandemic has increased our ability to do a lot of our work virtually, which also means that people can contribute their skills and talents from wherever they are. When the pandemic began and schools closed in Michigan, I believe the announcement came out on March 13th, one of the things that Star knew that we could do in response to the crisis was to offer some of our important foundational trainings that we offer online, our e-learning courses, for free. So we began offering our introductory course in children and the impact of trauma and resilience. for practitioners, therapists, and clinicians. And then the other one, our introductory course for teachers and educators for free. It's about a $200 purchase price typically. And we expected some hundreds and maybe a few thousand people to take advantage of those courses, which you can take on your own time online. 4 months later, 105,000 professionals from 150 countries have taken one of our foundational courses on trauma and resilience. We are receiving on a regular basis thank you notes, and as we've begun to call them, love notes from professionals all over the world, thanking us for making those critical knowledge pieces and tools available to them as they are struggling with their own needs as affected by the pandemic, but also figuring out how to support children during this time, and then also in what we begin to call post-recovery time. In addition, all of our local work that we've been doing with school districts in the state of Michigan, and then also school districts in other states, is continuing. So as you know, we've had a long multi-year partnership with the Marshall Public Schools, and we are proud to announce that the Albion Community Foundation, funded by their Youth Advocacy Committee, has just committed some support to help Harrington Elementary and the Marshall Public Schools implement STAR's Courageous Classrooms, which is social and emotional learning curriculum. And we are currently in the midst of looking for new funders to help us spread that across all of the elementary schools for Marshall Public Schools. And we're working closely with Dr. Davis, although as we just heard, school financing and school returns are very up in the air right at the moment. Dr. Davis is very interested in finding some ways to continue the work we've been doing at Marshall Middle School as well into this next fiscal year. We're also working with the Battle Creek Public Schools, Lakeview Public Schools, Ypsilanti Public Schools, Lincoln Park Public Schools, Washtenaw Intermediate School District, St. Clair Intermediate School District, and just in Michigan, where we are providing coaching, training, and sometimes embedded staff and that are working to transform schools to ensure that they are spaces of safety and focused on resilience for young people as we focus on academic achievement. We're also working in Albany, New York, in Indiana, and in multiple school districts in Texas. Again, right now, through the pandemic, we've been doing that virtually. And what we're finding is more people can access what we have to deliver through virtual than they had been able to do in person. There is no longer the need to fly somewhere or the need for hotel rooms. It's decreased the cost and increased access. And so for us, that part of our work is growing very quickly. In addition, given the impact of the new awareness for many people about the injustices of the American systems around race, we are getting more inquiries for our work on racial healing, which we call Glasswing. And we are in the midst of working on redesigning some new ways that Glasswing can be made available. For some of you, you know that work as a 2 full day facilitated conversation, which is deeply transformative to the people that participate. But we have recently this last year been offering more of a 1 day or even a half day opportunity to begin the conversation. This last month, we've been working on how to do that in a more virtual environment. So we hope to be able to actually continue to broaden our ability to help organizations and individuals continue their own learning about racism in the United States and its impact on each one of us and how we can continue to heal. We also have a partnership with Children's Hospital of Michigan, based in Detroit. We are in the midst of, before the pandemic, integrating behavioral health with physical health at their child and adolescent clinic. And so during the pandemic, we have taken to training their medical teams, their doctors, their nurses, and their medical social workers. And just this last couple of weeks, we have begun to train their Wayne State University medical residents in the impact of trauma and toxic stress on young children, what it does to bodies and brains, and how it can be seen in physical environments. And we're very excited about that work because Children's Hospital of Michigan is going to help us create healthcare curriculum that we will then be able to use with other hospitals and other health systems in a professional development way, just like we do with education and with clinical practice. I also just wanted to mention we continue to deliver behavioral health services. So assessments and interventions for children, for families, and also now for adults, in particular teachers. During the pandemic, we made our counseling and behavioral health services available all online through telehealth. We were able to pivot everything we were doing in person to online, and we made that available to all the school districts where we had been working so that any of their teachers could also access behavioral health supports during a time when we all need more attention and supports for our own mental health and well-being. We do accept private insurances, as well as we partner with some of our community mental health centers, including Summit Point, to serve some youth in the Marshall Public Schools, in Albion, and through Summit Point for the youth that they cannot serve. The last two things I would share is that for about 20 years now, we have been running a conference focused on trauma and its impact on, in particular, children. And this would have been the week that we would have been holding our in-person trauma conference. We typically do that in Macomb County. And we get somewhere around 250 attendees to that conference. Well, of course, because of the pandemic, we had to move our conference to a virtual format. It started this morning at 8:30. And what we've been spending the last 2 months doing is filming all of the content for, if you were to go to a conference, you'd go to a 90-minute session and you would hear presenters and then you'd have questions and answers. We created a virtual format for that to occur. And we hoped to get the same 250 people that would attend. This morning, 1,033 professionals were registered and attending our online conference. From 39 states and 5 countries, we have participants. So they are listening, they are engaging, and we're doing live Q&A. And so we have 2 more days of the conference. It's just been outstanding. And it is, again, a way for us to actually impact the field, even all the professionals and all the work they will do with students. The last thing that we shared this morning at our conference, but we've done some social media posts about as well. Over the last year, we've been partnering with Spring Arbor University, and in July, we launched a new master's degree in education with Spring Arbor University. It is a totally online master's degree in trauma and resilience. You can be an educator in Texas or in Virginia or in Germany, and you can apply and take an online master's degree with Spring Arbor University. So you'll graduate with a master's in education with a focus in trauma and resilience. Star Commonwealth is all of the content for trauma and resilience, and any graduate of that program also then becomes a certified practitioner in education by Star Commonwealth. That for us was a strategic focus of something over the last year. We wanted to move into healthcare. We wanted to work with higher education. We wanted to ensure that we were shifting the way all adults saw and served and worked with young people. And so even as our residential treatment program right now is winding down and we're looking for how we will continue in that realm, we continue to grow our impact on behavioral health and on professional training and coaching. I will now stop talking and let anybody ask any questions that you might have for me about Star Commonwealth.
Thank you, Ms. Carey. That was very informative. Do members of council have questions? Mayor Pro Tem Williamson.
Hello. So I have a question about, is Star doing anything with the employees, or is Sequel the one doing all of the employees? Because I'm just wondering, I mean, 7 weeks isn't very much. We're in the middle of a global health crisis. Hiring is not really up. Was there anything that Star is going to do for the employees?
So all of the employees are employed by Sequel Youth and Family Services. And so part of the challenge, of course, is even if they were our employees, the ability to actually do much more than what they were doing would be very tough for us. I will tell you that Sequel Youth and Family Services investment in that severance package and health insurance is $1.2 million. So that's what it cost them to do the severance package for the 270 employees. And at this time, Star is not able to provide any additional financial support for that. It also legally would be something we would struggle to do since they're not our employees. We did during the pandemic use some funds to actually support staff with gift cards and some other things just to appreciate them. But the employment piece of this is because they're employed by Sequel Youth and Family Services.
Do we know approximately how many employees are from Albion city proper?
I do not know that. In fact, as you may know, those staff come from Battle Creek, Kalamazoo, Lansing, Jackson, Hillsdale. They're coming from all over, and I don't know the actual number specific in Albion proper. And again, interestingly enough, I don't have the information on the specific employees since they're not ours. But I do know that we did work with all of the economic development corporations and connected all of them with corporate HR for Sequel Youth and Family Services. So they were ensuring to invite them out onto campus and to do resume writing and some of the other things. So I know that Sequel would know that number, but I do not.
And then just one last question, is the closure of residential going to affect STAR's ability to do direct services with children in the future?
I hope not. Partly what we are attempting to do right now is figure out how to balance the cost of having that kind of a large facility against all the other programs and services that we deliver. Our intention is for it to not harm any of our future work with kids and families. Our mission, of course, is to lead with courage to create positive experiences so that all children, families, and communities can flourish. And so our attempt is to work through this decision, which was not one we had intended to make, and we had not had multiple years of planning to prepare for. Instead, we had a few days. And so at this point, we're looking to the future for how we'll actually pivot and continue to grow our services and impact the community.
Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. So did I understand that you will continue to work with the Marshall Public Schools to assist with their education process at the, I know you guys, I think, were involved at the Harrington School. Is that correct?
We were. We had a Resilient Schools grant a couple of years ago at Harrington, and now we have a new one from the Albion Community Foundation to do some work at Harrington around social and emotional curriculum.
So you will be involved this fall when school returns?
Yes. Now, what I don't know is how much more will be involved, and it will depend on the Marshall Public Schools funding for the fall. We do not yet have another signed agreement with them, but we're working on a draft that would allow us to continue to do some of the work we've been doing at the middle school in particular. And we're trying to find a way to expand what we're going to do at Harrington to all the elementaries. But we do not have signed agreements yet because the dollars are very much up in the air for the school districts.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Councilwoman Clark.
Because you've been working with the Marshall School Districts, which is Albion students, and at Harrington, do you have results of the training that you're doing to show the positive result and the areas that need improvement?
Yes, what I could do is share with you the results, the 2-year project we did at Harrington. We have the outcomes from that about what was improved, but also the things that still needed some continuing work. And I would be glad to share that. It was a document that we shared with our funder. And I can send that on to Mr. McClary and make sure that he can share it with the council.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a quick question.
Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. I know that STAR is famous for doing racial healing seminars, classes, exercises. Is that something that you've done at Harrington, or is it something that you could consider doing in conjunction with, in talking with the school district? Because I don't know if you're aware, but we have a resolution tonight on the agenda to approve racism as a national health crisis. And so I was wondering, and it was also included that we would like our school district to start to do something along those lines. So is that something you've done or could do, or give me your take on that?
First of all, I would totally agree with you that racism is a public health crisis, and it's one of our main priorities for ourselves as well in terms of figuring out how we improve the health and well-being of our children. And the nation's racism is a top priority in that area. We have actually with the Albion Public Schools and then the Marshall Public Schools, and while the two schools were figuring out what their future was going to look like, did a lot of work using our Glasswing racial healing with the students. You may recall that we ran summer camp kind of process with Marshall Public Schools and with Albion College, where we brought the high schoolers together when they were going to be joining the same building, and did a lot of our racial healing work with the students. We also then did that for the middle schoolers when they were coming together. But what still needs to be done is the adults. We know that our young people actually have done quite well on finding a way forward together in this new school district. But yes, we are very open to that. Again, it would be in partnership with the school district. And a thank you to the city. By the way, I did not mention a thank you to Mr. McClary, but also to Haley Snyder for reaching out to talk to us more about Glasswing, to understand what we have to offer and what that might look like for the city or for the schools. And so we do stand ready to help with that if and when we are asked.
Well, thank you, because I know that pretty much adults are pretty much, we have our minds set. And I think that, basically when children are young, you can change their mindset. So I was thinking that if if that's something that Marshall School Board, would adopt, that maybe that's something that you could take on to help change mindsets and introduce younger students to, racism and how that type of thing. So I'm just curious. But thank you.
And in fact, absolutely. This morning, one of the workshops that we delivered during our conference included Chaplain Ken Pons and Christy Barrett, who are two facilitators of our Glasswing work. They did a session called The Intersection of White Privilege and COVID-19. We had over 600 people who were live during that session. And you wouldn't have believed the chat comments that were happening in terms of how important this was and how could we do more, and resources and conversation. It was phenomenal. But one of the teachers asked, how do I do this with 6-year-olds?
Right.
How do I do this with, how do I do this with parents? How do I do this with? The exciting part for us is that the awareness is growing and the request to begin dialogue has begun again. And so we do stand ready to help communities and districts and cities as they tackle this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carey. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
I noticed that Representative Hazma is with us, and he's been very patient, and I'd like to give him the opportunity to address council because I know his schedule is always overflowing. So Representative Hazma, if you'd like to address the council and folks at home, of course.
Thank you. It's my privilege to have heard from Elizabeth Carey, who was very kind to update me on this star and sequel issue a couple of weeks ago. I've taken an abundance of notes. It was a very helpful meeting to learn from Mark Lilly and from the Y Center director about some of the issues that are facing Albion. I will be very attentive to the star and sequel issue. I'm pleased that STAR is looking at other ways like partnering with Spring Arbor and impacting the field, working primarily to impact healthcare, behavioral health, professional training. I'm pleased with the way that it's going. I look forward to, as the Pro Tem mayor indicated, learning more about what sequel and what these economic development agencies might be able to do in relation to some of these sequel employees that are very sadly losing jobs at this inopportune time. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next I'm sorry, members of council have a question for our representative, Mr. Hazma. Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to the next presentation, which is the 2020 Community Health Report with Elizabeth Schultes from Battle Creek Community Foundation. Welcome, Elizabeth. And you might still be on mute, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I was invited tonight to give a very bird's eye view overview of the Calhoun County Community Health Needs Assessment. Certainly, if the council were to want to do a deeper dive in a study session in the future, I'd be more than happy to come back for that, because a normal slide-by-slide presentation for this usually goes more than an hour. So I'm giving you the 10-minute top 10 hits here. So just a little background on community health needs assessments. They are a requirement of the Affordable Care Act. This is the third round of community health needs assessments that has needed to be conducted since the Affordable Care Act went into place. So essentially what it is telling hospital systems that they need to go out and engage with their community through a variety of methods that can range from stakeholder interviews to focus groups to surveys, just any way that they can get firsthand knowledge from their communities combined with publicly available data to assess what the community needs, so that then they can create plans that are actionable to help address those needs. So again, so our hospitals can best serve our communities. They are also used by institutions such as health departments to help with accreditation processes, and can be used by communities in general to help procure funding for various needs that come up. So the health needs assessment is just the first step. After the health needs assessment is completed is when an implementation planning process takes place, again, to see how the community can come together and address those needs. So I'm here today just to speak about what the needs are. And there are others who are, as we speak, working on the plans and starting to pull together those implementation pieces. So I don't really have answers on what we're going to do about the data, because that's all underway right now, but more just to let you know what the data said. So we utilized for our secondary data, which would be your public health data, your American Community Survey, your census, all of your health indicators. We used Conduit Healthy Communities to help us collect that data. And you can actually go and see any of the data on any health indicators that are publicly available through the website called mycalhoun.org, mycalhoun.org, and kind of dive in deep. One of the limitations we have is often city level data is not available. So for the most part, the only publicly available data is kind of at the county level. So again, this is a county report. And I know that you, prior to the meeting, someone had shared with you the health needs assessment for Oakland Hospital. This assessment uses the same secondary data sources and has some additional focus groups. But the big difference here is Oakland was very involved in this health needs assessment as well. The one that you have for Oakland is from the perspective of selecting priorities based on what they as an independent hospital system have the capacity to address, and is very much from their focus. So when we look at the one that we're looking at today, it is about how can the community and all the institutions and all the hospital systems and independent partners come together to look at health needs as a whole. So just real quickly, our priority community needs here, the number one community health need was identified as the social determinants of health. So we had close to 300 individuals participate in this process through focus groups and stakeholder meetings and key informant interviews. And overwhelmingly during these interviews, it was the various social determinants of health that came up as being the greatest barriers to people achieving their optimal health. So the social determinants are the conditions and the environments in which people are born, live, learn, work, or play, or worship that affect their day-to-day quality of life outcomes. Social and physical determinants, as an example, education is associated with longer life expectancy, improved health and quality of life, and health promoting behaviors like getting regular physical activity, not smoking, and going for routine checkups and recommended screenings. while something like discrimination, stigma, or unfair treatment in the workplace can have a profound impact on health, and discrimination can increase blood pressure, heart rate, and stress, as well as undermine self-esteem and self-efficacy. So what we're saying here is essentially the traditional indicators like cancer, access to care, behavioral health, they're all impacted by what's happening in that social and physical environment. So this was overwhelmingly the number one area of concern, and in particular, socioeconomic status and the social environment were most frequently highlighted. And when we say social environment, we really are looking at different disparities around discrimination, racism, and social norms and attitudes and bias and distrust of systems. So when we go beyond the social determinants, behavioral health, and that included mental health and substance abuse, was our second highest need, really with a huge focus on the opioids that we've seen throughout our county over the last several years. And then access to care and health services ranked number 3. And so this one is very interesting because while you might look at the data and see that over 90% of the population has insurance, the reality is that insurance may not be sufficient enough to get people access to the care that they need. So there may be high deductible plans where there is still a socioeconomic indicator that keeps people from accessing services, or difficulty getting into providers because they may only accept a limited number of individuals with certain health care and health services. So in Albion in particular, I will say that one of the big things that came up under access to care is just the geography, transportation. Again, there are not as many services within the city, and if you need specialty services, it can be a challenge. Though I do want to point out that community health needs assessments are a point in time study, which means all the data and everything was what was available in March of 2019. Obviously, this data was all collected before we had urgent care open in Albion. So the climate within the community, and there's been an increase in access to certain services in the community since the study was done. And that is just, important to be aware of. There's also a lag in the way secondary data goes out. So all of the Michigan public health data was from the year through 2017 at the point that all of this was pulled together for a 2019 report, because that public data lags by a year or two depending on the data source. Additional areas, maternal, fetal, and infant health ranked number 4, exercise, weight, and nutrition was 5, chronic disease 6, wellness and lifestyle 7, age and gender 8, family planning 9, and cancer is 10. So within all of these, the community stakeholders that came together now under the umbrella of the Coordinating Council of Calhoun County are looking at how can these needs be addressed. And as part of that work, they've made a commitment to look at everything through an equity lens, and that is in respect for the fact that the social determinants of health ranked number 1, and making sure that as we look at the work moving forward and how do we address these needs, that we're really taking a holistic and comprehensive approach to meeting the needs of our community. So that is the very quick, without a whole lot of data.
Are there questions from council for Ms. Schuttes?
How can we get a copy of this?
So the full report is on the My Calhoun website.
My account?
My Calhoun.
Oh.
I don't know if it's pulling up
Elizabeth,
Yes,
is it possible to send the council a link to that?
sure.
Okay, she will send a link, Lynn.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And I'm just bringing up here this, can you see the map?
Mhm.
Is it showing up? Okay. This is from the My Calhoun website as an example of different data that you can dig into. So I brought this up because it's the socio needs index. And what that means is it's a measure of socioeconomic need that is correlated to poor health outcomes. And this dark blue color shows the areas in Calhoun County that where you have the poorest health outcomes based on the socioeconomic needs. And as you'll see, the Albion is actually the zip code area that ranks second for greatest need. So first is the 49037 and second is the 49224. So various data like this you'll be able to access from the site in addition to the report. So I can send a couple different links so that you can kind of go through and see some of these areas without having to do a whole lot of digging on your own.
Okay.
Um,
Councilman Spicer.
Thank you. So succinctly, Elizabeth, you would say that Albion is definitely in dire need or suffers from lack of health care for the majority of our residents. Is that correct?
Albion actually does show up as a medically underserved area in the study. So yes, and that's based on numbers of physicians and access to care. So there's actually very clear data that says exactly that.
Okay. And so would you say that not having a hospital, basically a local, I know we have the urgent care, but not having an actual hospital in town plays into that?
I think it's really about access. So even if you had a hospital, you still need to be able to access the preventative care, because hospitals should be used in emergency situations, not for day-to-day health care. So in some respects, it's the whole county has a physician shortage that we've been working to address over many years now. And certainly within Albion, you've lost a few physicians in the last few years who served significant numbers of populations. So I know that health providers are looking at how they can increase services to the community, but that definitely plays a factor.
And so if there was 2 hospitals suddenly emerged in Albion, that would not necessarily affect the graph or the chart map that we're looking at, because this is the socioeconomic needs. Is that correct?
Correct. It may affect the medically underserved status, because certainly with a hospital, you're going to have doctors that are employed there. But again, much of health is about preventative care and being able to get people into the doctor. It's one of the biggest challenges you have if you're looking at population where you might have a high number of Medicaid recipients is wait times getting into the doctor can affect their health care. Doctors maybe only having to limit the number of patients that they can take with certain types of insurance. Those are the things that create some pretty significant disparities for your populations.
Okay.
Right.
But
Go ahead.
Does the study show that there is not enough doctors taking care of people? Or maybe is it that people are not going to the doctors?
You have both, actually. So we've had in our county, probably for 20 years, we've been working on physician shortage, and then also the projected physician shortage is we have more and more physicians who are aging out. And actually, it's one of the reasons that Bronson Battle Creek started a family medical residency program, was specifically to address the physician shortage in the county, because studies show that residents tend to stay and live and work in the communities that they graduated from residency programs. So it has been something that collectively people have been working on for many years to get us to this point where we can build our physician population back up. But I think it's good to point out when we had a federally qualified health center in Albion, when Grace Health was providing more than dental services, one of the reasons that they had to pull the physicians from the area from Albion was because they couldn't find doctors to hire. So they really had to look at volume per capita of making sure that they were using the limited number of physicians that they had most strategically, and then worked very hard to get the patients in Albion transportation access when they moved those doctors to Battle Creek. So this has been a challenge for quite some time with the physician shortage. The other piece of it, and when we talk about the social determinants, that is one of the things. You have people not accessing services for a variety of reasons. And we have heard during these interviews that some of that is bias and discrimination and not feeling comfortable going to see healthcare providers, that they're that individuals may often feel that their voice and their concerns aren't going to be heard. So you have it both ways. People don't have access because they may not have the right insurance or they can't afford it, or there's not a comfort there and a level of trust. There's a mistrust of systems that can also prevent people from seeking care. So you have it both sides.
Okay. Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
You're very welcome.
Okay. We do not have a public hearing this evening. We're going to move into public comments. And then we have a very long agenda remaining yet. So would invite folks that wish to make a public comment on the agenda item to address agenda item and stick to the item and not go after people, their motives, their whatever. Just please stick to the agenda item. So I know we have members of the public that are with us. Who do we have first, Chief?
Mr. Brown.
Okay. Mr. Brown.
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, let's see, let me figure this out here. Okay, I think I got it, okay. A couple of things. So I was kind of concerned about the Granger conversation. If my understanding of the contract, the reason why we went with Granger is for them to relieve the administrative burden off the city. So I know Councilmember Williams made a comment about the manager controlling that, but really that's the whole point, that we farmed out that particular municipal service so that we wouldn't have people at City Hall worried about notification. So I really think that's something that Granger, the manager, can work with them, but I wouldn't try to fault the manager for that. Resolutions 2020, 38 and 41. I think that's really arbitrary. It shows that the mayor in the packet asked for these resolutions to come before council. I think it's actually very callous.
Mr. Brown, when you start to use terms like callous and you start going after Councilmember Williams,
I hope I can get my time back. Okay.
City manager, that's inappropriate. Do not make character attacks. Don't go after people.
Okay, that you took my time. I hope I get that back. So
no, if you would follow the rules, we wouldn't have an issue, sir.
Basically, you have these long resolutions, but the only really active part of the resolution is to request the manager to work at City Hall. And so that's very targeted to one employee. And so I think that's very, like I said, it gives the impression of a targeting of a staff member.
That would be, you're referring to somebody's motives, and that's inappropriate.
Okay, that's how I feel as a citizen. So, so the issue there is COVID is resurging. We should also be asking about how many people are actually using those services in City Hall. I'm sure a lot of people have gotten used to using the drop box out front. So that's very concerning, and hopefully November can fix this targeting of the manager. I'd also want to say, and hopefully the attorney can weigh in on this, is there's a resolution here to increase, I guess, our quarterly staff meetings with the manager and department heads. But for me, I feel like it's kind of a setup to find ways to undermine the manager by asking
Here
department
again,
heads.
you're going after motives of individuals. Please don't do that.
I didn't name an individual. How can I didn't name anyone. So
If you're saying it's intended to set somebody up, that's imputing the motives.
but who am I imputing the motive of? I didn't identify anyone. So I think that, and it also, the charter very clearly says that the council is supposed to deal with the administration through the manager. So again, I get maybe asking the manager to have quarterly presentations from staff, but an open forum where you can kind of question the department heads that might undermine the manager. I don't think that that's in keeping with our council manager form of government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. More public comments, please. Okay. Chief, are you aware of anybody wishing to make a public comment on the agenda items?
No, but I've lost control of my screen.
Okay.
Yes, there's one more. Hang on.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, it's Sonia Brown, 713 Orchard Drive. The agenda item regarding the quarterly work sessions or the quarterly meetings, I second what former Mayor Brown said. I saw a post recently on City Watch News that kind of speaks to the concerns of undermining, the possible undermining of the city manager. There was a post that I would encourage you all to go look at. I also want to speak briefly to the resolution to declare racism as a public health crisis here in Albion. I hope that council takes the first step in being on the right side of history and unanimously vote to adopt this resolution. Don't allow fear and discomfort to encourage you to water down the original terms presented to this council at the last meeting. So I encourage you all to vote unanimously to adopt that resolution and to take a long consideration of the resolution regarding the quarterly meetings with council, the city manager, and department heads and staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. Any other public comments this evening, Chief?
No, that's all.
Okay, so next, we have no closed session. Next is the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar, and that is the approval of the study session minutes for July 6, 2020, regular session minutes, July 6, 2020. I move that we approve those. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Snyder, would you read the roll, please?
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed, Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. First item for individual discussion is the second reading and adoption of ordinance 2020-06 and ordinance to amend chapter 22, article 4 to amend section 22-185 standards for outdoor cafe. And it is found on pages 38 through 40 of our packet. I'll move that be approved. May I have a second?
Support.
Okay, discussion. Councilmember Williamson.
I would just like to say I'm really happy that this has made it to the home stretch this evening. We've went through this a few times now, and I'm glad we've got it to a point that we're happy. I appreciate all my colleagues on council moving this forward and allowing businesses to continue to grow and thrive downtown and in the city. Thank you.
Okay. Other Councilman Smith.
Yes, I would just like to be sure that we and everyone involved understands under item 2 or section B, item 2, it does state that barriers are to be approved temporary barriers, and they are to be temporary bollard stanchions, planters, posts with rails and such, and that all materials must meet city approval. To be sure that's understood by all parties. I yield.
Okay. Other council members have comments or questions? Councilwoman Spicer?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to make a comment, and that is I had a couple of questions about what Councilman Smith is referring to there on Ash Street, where they're creating that outdoor cafe, beer garden. I had a couple questions. I sent that to you, city manager, in an email, you and Mr. Tracy. If you look at that and let me know, it doesn't affect this ordinance, so but it would be a subject to be looked at. So at your convenience, if you get back to me and just let me know, and you can let all the council know. Okay, if there's no further comments, I'd ask Ms. Snyder to read the roll. And this is to approve an ordinance to amend chapter 22, article 4, to amend section 22-185, standards for outdoor cafe.
Councilmember Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed, Smith, Councilmember Smith. Oh, and Mayor Atchison.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, next item is resolution 2020-36. Resolution to declare racism as a public health crisis in the city of Albion. I move that we approve that. Is there support?
Support.
Support.
Okay, discussion. Councilman Reed.
I read the one that Councilor Smith put in, and I like that a lot better because it's Albion. Was that the one we're talking about, or the first one?
I'm referring to the one that's on page 41 and 42 of our packet. And I don't have them committed to memory, so I can't answer your question.
Oh, okay.
Point of information, the resolution in the packet is for racism as a public health crisis in the city of Albion. That is,
yes,
currently the resolution on the floor.
Thank you.
So I believe her question was, which version was it? But go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I was just going to add, I'm really hoping that my colleagues tonight pass this resolution to take a deeper dive into the work we have left to do in Albion around racism, equity, access to care, and outcomes for all, but especially those who are underrepresented and underserved in our community. This is a really great, strong social statement for us to make. I thank Councilwoman Spicer for bringing this to our attention. I thank the mayor and Councilmember Smith and Councilmembers Reed and Clark, especially for bringing up some edits and making some changes and making this something that everybody can get behind. You know, there are very few times on this council over the last 2 years that we've been able to unanimously agree on a lot of big things. So it's really exciting that we're moving in that direction. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it is a needed resolution. I'm disheartened that none of the suggestions that I had made were taken to heart. Nothing was changed or added in that ilk. Everything pretty much still reads as was, with just a couple of additions. I don't think even the was corrected on a few things. I am disheartened that it mentions, it does not mention other races in the whole body of it. The only thing that's being mentioned is African Americans. it's leaving out African Hispanics, African Asians, and on and on and on. So no one else is getting any help here, if you want to put it that way. So I'm not going to vote against this. I will vote for it, but I do think the scope is too broad, as that it is not brought back into Albion, because we are the ones who need to work on ourselves. We don't need to work on everything in the world. We need to work on Albion. And I'm also disheartened that they didn't take into consideration the other racial groups. I yield.
Okay. Any other? Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. I just want to say that it may have focused on African Americans, but I'm sure whatever benefits the African American community, being a minority, would benefit any other minority groups. So I don't think that they have been left out just because we didn't specifically say Asians, Mexicans. They will be included. They're a minority group, so they would benefit from anything that benefited the African American community. And I just want to say I appreciate Councilor Clark for mentioning asking to include the school district. That was something I had not thought of, but I thought it was brilliant, because actually to change minds and heart, I do think you have to start at an elementary level, because we as adults pretty much have formed our opinions, and you're pretty much difficult to change how one feels. So I think that was a great piece, and this resolution does not omit or neglect any other minority group.
So
thank you.
I'm going to make a motion to amend it in two ways. They're very straightforward and simple. The devil is in the details, so the language and everything else is important. So on page 2, it's the first "be it further resolved." I'm going to make a motion that the word "full" be removed. Right now, it's committing our full attention to doing this. And obviously, this is very important, but it's not the only thing that we have to pay attention to. So part of the amendment is to remove the word "full." The second part is on page 3 of the amendment, which is "be it further resolved," and it talks about the city council calling on police unions dealing with training for their police officers. And in reality, the unions do not dictate training, nor do they train the officers. The training for the officers is done by the city and mandated both by the city and the state. So it doesn't really fit with the police union. So my amendment is to omit the word "all" and then to eliminate the first "be it further resolved" dealing with the police unions. May I have a second for that amendment?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion?
I think that, thank you. I think that I disagree. I think that we cannot, our police department is unionized, and we cannot overlook or overstep them, because I think that they are the ones who would be important into making sure that the officers have the necessary training. They're a union, and what they require of their employees or staff is they can institute certain things that says you should do this, and they have to do it. I don't think council can dictate that. We can agree with it. So I don't think that piece needs to be pulled out, honestly.
Okay, so first, they're not employees of the union.
They are a member.
Collective bargaining, they represent them. So Mayor Pro Tem Williamson.
Okay, so I want to just add, there's nothing wrong with calling on police unions and other organizations and entities to make this type of work a priority. Simply calling on them to do it is not a mandate for them to have to do anything. It is a request to have them consider, like we are considering, that equity and racism is a problem in our community. So I find I take a bit of pause to that. The one that makes me a little more uneasy is the fact that we would take the word "full" out of the whereas clause, because just as an example, racism and equity have been an issue since the founding of this country. How much longer are we not going to make sure that it's part of our full attention in everything that we do moving forward? saying that we're going to put our full attention towards equity work does not diminish the work of everything else that's going on in the city that needs to be done, but it does mean that we're going to have that equity lens on everything moving forward. Just think about how much better the services in our city could be, organizations and groups in our city could be if every time we talked about delivering services, creating programs, we used an equity lens to deliver that work. So again, I don't support this motion because how much attention is too much attention to race and equity? I don't think there can be too much attention at the moment. Right. I don't support that amendment. I yield.
So for clarification, to make sure there's no misunderstanding, if the full attention of the council is based on one particular issue, it's not on other issues. That's my objection to this. We have a lot of things to focus on. Equity is extremely important. So if there's no further comments.
I have
Councilman
a comment.
Spicer.
I would like to say that full does not mean absolute attention. It just means that when we give it attention, we give it our full attention. It does not mean that it takes priority over other issues. So I actually disagree with that as well and do not support that.
Okay, well, I disagree with you, but we're going to vote and it'll end up where it is. Ms. Snyder, please read the roll.
Wait 1 second. What are we voting on?
We're voting on the amendment to eliminate the word all and to eliminate directing the police unions in dealing with training, which they don't do.
Okay.
You're welcome. Ms. Snyder?
Councilmember Williamson,
No.
Clark, looks like she's
No.
Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Spicer,
No.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay, so the amendment fails. Okay. Ms. Snyder, would you read the roll? And we're going to go with the original amendment, which is to approve this resolution as is.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay, next item.
Thank you.
Okay, Resolution 2020-38, a resolution establishing City of Albion policies promoting expeditious restoration of municipal operations and city services to the maximum extent permissible under Governor Whitmer's executive orders in effect. I move that we approve this resolution as is. May I have a second?
Support.
Support.
Thank you. Discussion. So I wrote it. I'll start off with, I think we have a difference of opinion, some of us with some of the interpretations by the city manager. And so I have laid out what, after talking with numerous council members, most, not all, that I think this clearly articulates what the council views the definitions and explanations of the executive orders are, and not quite as conservative and provide more leeway for city operations. I know I get the questions in a variety of forms, emails, phone calls, people stopping me, when are we going to go back to doing this, et cetera. And obviously with COVID-19, it's not going anywhere. And so the sooner we adapt to what the new normal is, the better off we'll be. There have been some specific questions about making income tax payments and other things that not being able to get into City Hall is quite burdensome. A lot of people just are not comfortable putting money in a drop box, even though I read the communique today about those are supposed to be checked every 2 hours. And some people don't have checking accounts. So that's the intent on this. I yield to any other council member that wishes to address it.
I have I want to say something.
Councilman Clark.
Okay, I understand that we're being protective of our city workers and things like that. And I had asked the city manager at one of the other meetings, what will we put in place? And, you know, because I had been in the building and didn't see anything in place. And I agree with the mayor when he says that COVID is here and it's not going anywhere. So because of the fact we know that we have a new normal now, I just would like to see our city adapt to the new normal and start to make the preparations. Our building isn't like some of the other buildings where people are sitting on top of each other or have to be right by each other. I've gone into a lot of different buildings and seen where petitions were put up and whatever was needed to be put up, and the foot markings were on the floors, and we have not done anything moving forward. So I would just like to see us move forward and progress with as much as we can in safety and do things best possible. Saying that, I also want to make sure that when we do enter back into the buildings, that the sanitation is done properly. It's not a normal clean. It requires more cleaning than the normal services, so that we would keep our sanitation, whoever does that, keep our employees safe. And I yield.
Okay. Councilwoman Reed.
I have been contacted by several people who have asked when was it going to open back up, because they don't have checking accounts. And so therefore they want to pay in cash, but they cannot pay in cash, and there's nobody letting them in the door. There was a little lady, an older lady too, down there yesterday. Not yesterday, it was Friday. And she was trying to read even the sign on the door, and it was taller than she is. And she stood there for about 10 minutes. And I finally told her, you can't put your, can't go inside. You'll have to put your money in the box over there. She has shook her head, but there's several people who have commented about not being able to pay their bills. So, and they wanted to know when was it going to open back up. Wasn't sure, so I didn't say, but I think it's time to open up too.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of echoing Ms. Reed and Ms. Clark, we do have a fairly unique building in that most of the offices are very well separated, and most only house one person. And the one that does have multiple people, they seem to be fairly well spread out. Of course, I'm sure, we will keep the mask and glove thing in place, of course, and hand sanitizers and all that. I too have had complaints of people trying to use the drop box and the fact that it is too small. They are afraid of putting in cash or putting in payments. And also there have been a lot of people who are worried about dropping absentee ballots in there, wanting to be sure that their vote is going to be counted. So those are the concerns that my constituents have. And I just hope we can move forward with this. And as everyone's saying, start the new normal. I yield.
Further comments by council? Councilman Spicer.
Is our city manager present tonight or no?
I'm here.
So can you speak to that issue? The things that the questions that people just mentioned. I actually dropped off a couple of bills in the box, and it is a small opening, and I'd like to see something with a larger opening, but I haven't heard anybody say anything about having an issue with, the dropping it off at the drop box. I know someone tried to drop their taxes off, and because that envelope is a lot larger, it was hard to get in there. So I think that, if we, at some future point, if we could get a box with a larger box with a larger opening, then that would help in that issue. But can you speak to what was just stated?
I agree that that there are things that we can do. If people are having an issue with being able to drop things off in the drop box, I mean, we can replace the drop box. That's not an issue. I guess addressing the issue of the security of the drop box itself. I mean, we've had that drop box out there for a long time, and there's never been an issue with it. The accesses to that drop box is with our finance department. There have been some concerns about the drop box getting full and making sure that it doesn't get so full that it starts to overflow. So as the mayor had mentioned a few minutes ago, the finance department, the finance director has communicated with his employees that they are to be checking that drop box, removing items from the drop box every 2 hours during business hours. So that issue will be addressed. But going back to the resolution itself, the resolution, if you take each item by itself, each whereas, the statements may be correct, but the governor's executive orders do not operate independently of each other. They have to operate together, and there are several executive orders that we are operating under, and we are trying to do the best that we can to make sure that we are melding all of the executive orders together and coming up with an approach that allows us to comply with all of the executive orders. And so it's not so much a science as it is an art. And, you know, different communities have different interpretations, different opinions of what the governor's executive orders say. I've seen city managers who have taken quite a liberal approach to interpreting the governor's executive orders and their decisions to reopen city halls. And, you know, I don't try to tell other city managers how to manage their operations. I take a more strict approach. I try to look at the letter of the executive orders, and I try to follow them as closely as I possibly can. And Stephen and I lost a family member to COVID-19 last week. We've lost 2 friends to COVID-19. This is serious. And the safety and security of my employees, the safety and security and the health of our citizens is of my utmost concern. And it takes precedence over some people who may be upset by these decisions. We have to be serious about what we're doing here. I know that people are inconvenienced, and I understand that. I feel the frustration. I get frustrated a lot of times too in my everyday life and having to deal with what we're dealing with right now. But if I have to choose between allowing people to come into City Hall so that they can drop something off in person because it makes them feel better to do that, or keep City Hall closed to the public and protect the health of those citizens and protect the health of my employees, I'm going to do that first. And what it's going to come down to is if the council adopts this resolution, we are going to have a serious discussion about what aspects of this resolution I can comply with, what direction from you I can comply with, and which direction I'm going to have to refuse to comply with. And I would hope that the city council would not put me in that situation. You have to trust me as city manager to be making these decisions. Council, you already know that I follow what is happening with these executive orders on almost a daily basis. I look at them, I read them, I reread them, I try to comprehend the new ones that come out and how they impact what we've already been doing. And I'm as anxious to get City Hall back open as anybody, but I will not do it if it means it's going to put my employees at risk, if it means it's going to put citizens at risk. It is much safer from a health standpoint to have people drop their items off in the drop box. And it is much safer for my employees that they do that. I don't know what else to say to this resolution except that I am extremely disappointed by it. It tells me, as your only employee, that you don't trust what I do. If that is the case, you need to replace me. But I am going to continue to make decisions as city manager based on what I very carefully look at the law as being. And I have had, and I trust our city attorney to tell me if I'm all wet on what I'm doing, because he is our legal expert. Short of that, the council has to trust their city manager to make these decisions. You adopted a policy on March 16th, making it my responsibility to make these decisions. And I don't know what else to say, except that we are getting to a point to where something has to change here. I cannot do my job as city manager with 7 council members wanting to do the job of city manager. So I'm very disappointed in this resolution. It is in some ways factually incorrect. And it doesn't take into account looking at all of the governor's executive orders together. It picks and chooses the arguments. What I would chant, and I'm not entirely sure who wrote this resolution, but I would challenge that person to go back and look at all of the executive orders and provide me with a recommendation on how we mesh them all together legally to reopen City Hall, because I do that almost every day. And do it in a way that protects my employees, protects every citizen of this community. And I'm sorry that I'm coming across as strongly as I am, but as somebody who has personally been affected by this virus, it is personal.
Mayor Pro Tem Williamson.
Thank you. So I just want to make a couple of points. I don't want to be the city manager. I don't think many of us up here want to be city manager, but I think a majority of us are frustrated with the fact that we are one of less than 25 municipalities charging an income tax, and we're the only one that hasn't opened City Hall in some form or fashion, whether that be by appointment only, whether that be by the tent set up outside with social distancing. It is thoroughly frustrating that to pay taxes, your water bill, or fines and things like that, that you cannot come to City Hall to do that. Not only can you not come to City Hall, you literally just have to drop it in a box. You don't get a receipt when you turn in your information. That way, if someone inevitably fumbles, because we're all human, no one can prove that they, I could pay my water bill in cash in the drop box tomorrow. And if someone mistakes it for something else or misplaces it or ends up in a different, how am I going to prove that I paid my water bill without a receipt? You're just going to tell me to pay it again. So first of all, the inconvenience is citywide. This isn't just a couple of people here. I think that all of us have heard in one form or fashion that this is completely inconvenient, and it's hard to watch our neighboring cities, communities, and people we know be able to go pay their bills or go make a complaint or do what they need to do. Again, the CDC actually provides guidelines for opening offices. We've had 4 months of closure. March 16th was the last day that I think that was the day we actually closed. So in the last 4 months, we have at council's level seen related to reopening, safe protocols, making the city as accessible as possible, even during the pandemic. Meanwhile, businesses and individuals across the city have had to do what they can to stay alive throughout this global health crisis. So while I, you know, I do feel bad about people, at this point, everybody knows we're six steps away from knowing someone who's had COVID-19 or who has been affected by it. Okay. It's terrible, and it's here, and we don't have a vaccine, but we do have safety protocols given to us by the CDC, guidelines from the state health department for how we can safely reopen and deliver limited, if it has to be limited, services to our communities. So in fact, I just want to add that I admire the city manager wanting to protect his staff and employees, but it is my understanding a majority of the staff employees are reporting to work. So they're already there. So if the concern was that the infection was just going to run rampant, they're already in the office working in and out multiple days a week. So there are very few people who are exclusively working from home. So
well, let me correct you on something.
Before I'm interrupted,
let Councilman Williamson finish.
And before I'm interrupted, I understand wanting to protect staff. The other thing I want to add is, you know, the idea of refusing to follow a resolution that council passes is insubordinate. So we need to keep that in mind. If you want to have a discussion about contracts and employment, then you need to call the closed session and have that conversation, or you can have an open session. It's your choice. But I join with many citizens in this community who are absolutely frustrated that we can't even get it together to get flower pots outside. That's the most outside, risk-averse thing we could do, and it took forever to do it. I mean, and that's just the tiniest, dumbest thing we could do in our city. I'm actually talking about paying taxes and water bills. So I do have a strong, heavy opinion about this. I think we need to open the city, which is essentially what we want to do with this resolution. And if you want to have a thoughtful discussion about what's priority after that, then I'm open to that as well. But it's time to get open and be like everybody else, because we're going to lose tax revenue, and then you're going to go after people who didn't turn in their tax payments in a timely manner. So get open and make yourselves available and do it safely. That is important. I don't want to meet with anybody in person right now either. I want to stay as far away from people as possible. But it's time to figure out how we can do it safely. Just like with council meetings, we really can't socially distance in that room, but we can find a venue or a place or outside, just like every other city has, to have a meeting. So let's figure it out and let's get creative. And I guess the bigger question I have is, what have you been doing for the last 4 months to facilitate this happening? We've had 4 months of preparation. Every business has been shuttered. Every individual worker has been thinking, how do I reinvent myself and get ready for what's coming next? And I just feel like here we are in Albion, 12 steps behind everybody else in trying to make sure that we provide good services to our community. So and you can be argumentative with me this evening and provide counterpoint after counterpoint after counterpoint. And I'm going to say, we're going to open the city by resolution because that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Any other council members wish to make a comment? Councilwoman Reed. Councilwoman Reed.
I kind of see it the same way Shane does. I have people who are even complaining about, they call down to City Hall, but they can't get anybody. And they feel like that their problems, and I keep hearing, I pay taxes, I need to get things done, and they're not being able to. And I have continued business in my life as usual, but you go places and you see how they've set up things has made it very safe for their employees. For one thing, I went to the bank today that had been closed, but is now open. And you walk in and you see how they've got everybody behind a shield. And on top of that, you have to make an appointment so that you don't have 5 or 6 people in that room at one time. And that could be very well done here. I mean, a lot of people are not going to go any further than the window, but if they do need to talk to Mr. Tracy or to Mr. Mingo or something, if they've got the proper things in their cubicles that keep them safe, and all the buildings have, when you walk in, if you don't have a mask on, do not come in. And that's the same thing that should be enforced here. But I think Albion needs to get back, because if it's not going to get any better anytime soon, I'd hate to think that we had to continue as the way we're doing now.
Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. I think that some businesses have started reopen and with basically some guidelines in place, like you can't come in without a mask. I think that if we, as a city manager knows that we are, the council is, majority of council wants to have City Hall reopen, I think we should give him an opportunity to present a plan to us for reopening. I don't think we should by resolution demand reopening. We hired him to run the city, and I think we have to put some trust in him. And I think that doing this with him against it, he's the city manager. We are not. So I think that we can trust if we tell him that we want you to come up with a plan for us to have City Hall reopen by the next meeting. And because I think at some point, things are going to shut down. People are still not following the guidelines. I was at Walmart last week and a couple people tried to come in. They have someone at the door that's saying you cannot come in without a mask. Some people don't believe that this is real. They think it's a hoax and they're not wanting to use their privilege and not wanting to abide by the rules. So I think that he's our city manager. We hired him to direct the city. I don't think we should be making resolutions telling him. We should ask him, give us a plan for when you think and how you think. I don't think we should be telling him, open the city right now. You know, if that's something that he's not comfortable with doing. I haven't talked to any city staff person that said, oh, I think we should reopen. They pretty much, the couple people that I've talked to are in agreement with what's going on. So I think residents are, it might be a few that are inconvenienced, but for the most part, I haven't heard people say that they are totally against what we're doing. I know the mail slot is inadequate. We do need to do something about that. But I think that at some point, we're probably going to be shut back down come the fall because things are not going as people hope. So I just would like us to give him an opportunity to present to us how he feels that we can reopen under a safety measure and not just tell him how to do his job. I mean, we hired him for that reason. We pay him a great amount of money. And so we shouldn't be telling him. We're not experts as running a city. Otherwise, we need a city manager. So that's my opinion on it. And that's, I yield.
Okay.
All the questions.
We have not yet heard from Councilman Smith. I want to make sure you have the opportunity to speak, and then I'll go to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
And I have a comment also, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Smith, did you have anything you want to say at this point?
No, sir. I have said my piece. I think Ms. Clark is probably the only one we haven't heard from.
Okay. Ms. Clark. You're on mute.
Okay, now I'm in. Okay. So, city manager, I don't want you to think that I mistrust you or I'm trying to do your job. That is not my intent. However, just as others have stated, even the city of Lansing, the city hall is open where the governor is. So that causes me to lean towards, okay, so if even the city of Lansing is open and serving, then we need to be taking steps. And that's exactly what I asked you in the last meeting. What steps are we taking? Because again, I haven't seen anything happen in the building itself. And even people that are, aren't open have put steps in place for when they do open. So, I sort of just asked you when we were going to do that. And I was hoping and expecting for you to say something in this meeting to let us know where you were going. So that's where I am.
Okay. Well, City Attorney Harkness.
So there's been a lot of back and forth, and I know that at least a lot of the council members are probably aware there are a lot of executive orders out there. And I would venture, I don't think it would be too outlandish to say that they change and evolve on probably a weekly basis. And I think everyone on council and the manager knows that, it's council's role to set policy and it's the manager's role to execute policy. So, I can't say that there's any legal fault in council's position on wanting to open up City Hall. But I would just remind council that it's exclusively in the manager's purview in how to execute that policy. And, you know, obviously if the council doesn't think the manager is executing policy appropriately, they can address that as they see appropriate. But where I would just caution council in that in the resolution, to a certain extent, I think it, like by way of example, subsection D kind of references the direction of city staff. I would, say that things like that would, city employees may be assigned to physically perform work. I might suggest adding the language in the discretion of the city manager, because, it's up to him on what the employees do and when they do it and how they do it. And I don't disagree with council's ability to set policy, but he's the chief administrative officer for the city. So everybody under him is directed by him. And then, if you guys don't like how that's playing out, that's an issue that you address with Mr. McCleary. But I just want to, kind of clarify that for council, and as you're debating this resolution, keep that in mind.
Councilwoman Spicer, you're on mute.
So in that vein, can I make a friendly amendment to that resolution that the city manager have a plan to council by the next meeting as to reopening or the city services and what his plans are, so that we will know. And then if we disagree with something, we can have a conversation at that point. I just don't think that, this resolution demanding that he do such I think we're a little bit overstepping, and we hired him to be a city manager. We pay him a great deal of money. And I think that we should just allow him to to do his job. If we don't agree after he presents a plan, then we can certainly curtail that or say, hey, this is different. I don't think, I'm not really supportive of, forcing him to do something that he is totally not for. He's our city manager. We want him to be on board with things that we ask him to do. And in 2 weeks, I think is not going to change anything one way or another. Different agencies, companies do different things. And even though, a city may be open, he is maybe looking at it from a different aspect. So I think if we allow him to present a plan to us by the next meeting, I think that would be the best way to go. He runs the city. He's our
Parliamentary
city
procedure.
Just a second. Okay, are you done, Councilwoman Spicer?
I am. I just wanted to add a friendly
Mayor
amendment.
Pro Tem.
I was just gonna say that would be more than a friendly amendment. You would just have to move to amend it to state what you wanted to state and get a second, and we would have to move through that process. So I just wanted to advise you that that's a friendly amendment is something that doesn't change the spirit of the bill. It's generally something related to, grammar, fixing something that was unintended, but this would actually change it. So you would need to move to amend it to say that you want to plan at the next meeting.
Okay.
So Cullen, is that right? I can't do a friendly amendment?
City Attorney?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having, as everyone else, I'm having issues with the mute function here. Generally, a friendly amendment is a very limited scope amendment, and I would probably agree if you're going to make that amendment, it would probably be just I move to amend as opposed to a friendly amendment.
All right. And so, because I wrote it, this resolution does not direct the city manager to open City Hall. What this resolution does is clarify and sets policy of what the council's interpretation of various portions of executive orders, which are where we have a big separation between what the majority of council, and it probably is not going to be unanimous, but the majority of council views what the interpretation is, what is permissible. This resolution does not direct the city manager to open the city hall. It doesn't direct the city manager to assign individuals to do certain things. It sets policy, and it says the city council, it is our policy, the city's policy. This is what these executive orders mean, and we're clarifying that. I know I personally, and I can think of 3 other council members that have had conversations with the city manager, asking questions, and we have a fundamental difference of opinion on what some of these executive orders mean. That's the best explanation that I have. So this is to set policy to clarify that. And if the city's council passes this resolution that will establish that policy, then we can have further discussion. If I'm hoping that the city manager, if this passes, the city manager will go, okay, I don't see those executive orders that way, but the council has spoken. They've given me direction that this is the policy. And then he'll figure out how to carry that out. So I don't think you could amend this motion to say you'd have to get it approved to table it or not vote for it or whatever, and then come up with some other item to put on the agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Williamson. You're on mute, sir.
Okay, so I will say, at the advice of the city attorney, I move to amend under resolved subsection D, city employees may be assigned at the discretion of the manager. Just add at the discretion of the manager after assigned, just to make sure that we are following our attorney's guidance and covering ourselves legally in doing this policy. So I move that, and I need a second in order for that to be voted.
I'll second it. Okay. Councilwoman Spicer.
Okay, so City Manager McCleary, what is your feeling regarding what Councilor Williamson just said? What do you, and the mayor just second, what's your opinion?
I don't have a concern with that particular change.
So let's vote on the amendment. Unless there's other questions or discussion on the amendment. It's been moved and seconded to insert the words at the city manager's discretion as far as the city employees may do X at the city manager's discretion. Okay. Ms. Snyder, would you read the roll, please?
We're voting on the amendment, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's just.
Sorry about that. I was having issues myself. Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Lawler, Spicer?
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
And Mayor Atchison?
Yes. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution with the one amendment change, which is to insert at the direction of the city manager regarding assignment of personnel. Is there any further questions or discussion on the resolution as amended?
Your Honor, I have a question on the second resolved, where it says a tracking system to account for the number and full cost to the city. What are you referencing in terms of the phrase, the number?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it here. Where, okay, I think I'm looking at it says, the Albion City Council directs the city manager to immediately implement a tracking system to account for the number and full cost to the city in pay and benefits for any paid remote work by city employees and a record of all work actually accomplished remotely.
Yeah, what does the phrase "the number" refer to? I'm not entirely sure what that.
There's a word that should have been inserted, which is the number of hours and full cost to the city in pay. So that's a typo. The number of hours.
So Cullen, what do we do about that?
Given the way that it's presented to council, I would recommend that the council make an amendment to include that language, even though it's a typo.
Okay,
If I could pose a question to the city attorney, though, when you're talking about the number of hours, now we have a number of salaried employees. What FLSA implications do we have with that?
Well, okay, so two things. I mean, you're referring to the Fair Labor Standards Act?
Yes.
Okay, well, so one, I'm gonna preface this with, that would probably be a question we'd have to direct to our labor council. Generally, I guess, as it relates to
because if I could, I don't mean to put.
No. What I can offer is, salaried employees are generally exempt from basically having their income tracked on an hourly basis. My assumption is that council is probably looking for a breakdown of what their functional equivalent hourly rate would be. But I think the manager's point here is, yes, under the Fair Labor Standards Act, and I can speak to this as somebody that has employees that are exempt under the FLSA. Some employees that are salaried are not tracked on an hourly basis. They're just paid an annual wage regardless of how many hours are actually worked.
Okay, so I'm going to make an amendment, and hopefully I'll get support to eliminate this entire, be it further resolved. We'll eliminate that, and we'll come back, have conversations with the city manager, and if anything else needs to be readdressed, or he'll answer questions or whatever. So I move that we amend this resolution to remove the following. Be it further resolved, the Albion City Council directs the city manager to immediately implement a tracking system to account for the number and full cost to the city and pay and benefits for any paid remote work by city employees, and a record of all work actually accomplished remotely. May I have a second?
Support.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Ms. Snyder, would you read the roll?
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed, and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. Now it's been moved and seconded to approve this resolution with the one amendment that was approved, which was to insert the phrase "at the direction of the city manager." Okay, Mr. Snyder, would you please read the roll so we may vote on the resolution? If you're voting yes, you're voting to approve the resolution, which establishes policy. If you vote no, then it's against.
Councilmember Spicer,
This is with the amendment, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed, Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, next item, resolution 2020-39, a resolution establishing quarterly work sessions with the city manager and administrative staff to discuss items of general concern and facilitate collaboration. I move that it be approved as written. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, so this is exactly what our city manager requested in, I believe it was in April, when you provided us a list of, city council supports. One of them was this. There was other things in that talking about we're a team, we're committed together. So many of those things that you asked for are captured verbatim in this resolution. I think it's a good idea. Communication builds teamwork, will make us a stronger team. And that's why I've put this forward. It is what you requested. Certain members of the public spoke how disappointed they were that council did not. It's perfectly fine. There was nothing in there. So this is just going forth with that one specifically, but several of the other things that you requested are incorporated in here. So I yield to Mr. McCleary. Do you wish to speak?
Your Honor, I just wanted to say that unlike the previous resolution, this is one that I wholeheartedly support. I think there is a misunderstanding by some members of the public about what the intention was behind this resolution. I'm a little disappointed that some of the other things that I had asked for commitment on aren't included, but I think this is a great first step. And And so I just want to make it clear to the public that this was an idea that I put forward. This was not something that the council is imposing on me. So I wholeheartedly support this resolution.
And I'll make one quick comment and then we'll yield to whoever else wants to make a comment. I made a commitment that by the end of June, I believe it was, that council would get back to you with a marked up copy, our input on your list of principles and whatnot. And I was late. I submitted that last week. I'm not sure if you got anything from other council members, but I do view this as a first step as we work through those. And the last thing I'll comment on, part of the resolution makes it clear that the intent is for council to listen to you and the staff and not assign new projects and tasks. The council's in the receiving mode. So, members?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, City Attorney.
So just one suggestion in the same vein from the last resolution suggestion. I obviously, Mr. McCleary is certainly in favor of the resolution, and that's great. Obviously, myself as a department head, I have no problem participating in this, but one suggestion I would make, just to avoid the appearance of the council directing subordinate staff to appear, is I might say in subsection B, that the quarterly work sessions with the city manager and maybe change the language to say something along the lines of, and department directors selected by the manager to discuss items of general concern and permit staff. Obviously, I think the manager is very good at selecting the staff to speak at meetings and study sessions, et cetera, as it is, but I might just suggest that change to avoid the appearance that council is directing specific department heads to do specific tasks.
And I would support that change.
All right, I'm looking for the resolution here. Okay, so a recommendation is made by the attorney. Does anybody wish to make an amendment, propose an amendment? And
I will pose the amendment as suggested by the city attorney.
okay, so now that I have the resolution in front of me, where does it go and what is the specifics? I'm looking for it here.
So my suggestion was under the resolve section, subsection B. My suggested change would be, it would read, the city council will hold work sessions in the second week of the second month of each quarter, February, May, August, and November, with the city manager and any department directors selected by the city manager to discuss items of general concern and to permit staff to provide feedback to council on their needs.
It's been moved. Anyone wish to support?
Support.
Okay. Ms. Snyder, would you read the roll?
Councilmember Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Spicer. Was that a yes, Ms. Spicer?
Yes, sorry.
And Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay, so the resolution has been amended. Now, Ms. Snyder, if you would read the roll, we'll vote on approving the resolution as amended.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. Next item, resolution 2020-40 to establish the community partnership program. I moved it be approved as written. May I have support?
Support.
Okay. This was discussed at the last council meeting, and part of the discussion was providing some formality and encouraging civic organizations, businesses, private individuals from working with the city, either neighborhood cleanups or basic simple services that groups can assist with. We have an item on the agenda later this evening about opening the tree dump. This might come into play with that if it's an issue with staffing to do certain things. So my hope is that this will become a great resource multiplier, and we'll get more corporations, more civic organizations that will take on some responsibilities, some very small, perhaps some very big, to make Albion a better place. So it's been moved to second. I open up for discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, City Attorney.
I didn't know I was going to have such a vocal night, but
Neither did
sometimes
I.
it just plays out that way. Apologies.
You
So
would've
just
dressed better.
yeah. So just so the council's aware, I think the general idea of the program is a good one. I think a lot of cities have derivations of this program. I think, when this eventually comes to fruition, there's going to be a couple things that the city's going to have to keep an eye on. And this is just the attorney in me. One thing is, depending upon what these volunteer groups do, or, in the city, we're going to have to fashion some sort of release of liability for their participation. I think that's a given. Again, something that we're probably going to want to consult with our labor council about is, depending upon what work these groups are doing, that none of the unions have issues with work that they're doing, and that's something that Mr. McCleary and I can talk to our attorneys at Keller Toma about, but just making sure that we don't want to run into an issue with one of our unions filing a grievance about us taking work away from city employees. So just little things like that. I think there's going to be some logistical issues to hammer out, but so I want the council to be aware of those, but I do think it's a good thing for the city. So I just wanted to put those legal concerns out there, that those are going to be some potential landmines that we're going to have to work to sidestep, but I do think it's doable.
Thank you. And I'm of a mind that if we get started down that process of identifying those landmines, sorting them out, and coming up with standard, consistent processes, we'll get there. But if we don't start, we'll never get there. Mayor Pro Tem Williamson.
I was just going to add that this is really successful in other municipalities all over the country. Locally here in Calhoun County, there are several groups that do this in Battle Creek related to disc golf courses and parks. In Albion, we could see this evolve around different parts of the community. Councilwoman Reed could establish a group that's for Holland Park, and then they caretake Holland Park in partnership with the city. The same thing with the band shell. There's something similar in place with the Community Foundation as it relates to Victory Park. They have a fund there to help maintain it, but it's not a formal partnership, right? This is going to encourage a lot more of that activity to take place. So really happy to support this.
Okay. Any other comments by council? Seeing none, Ms. Snyder, would you read the roll?
Councilmember Reed, Smith,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay, and next up is Resolution 2020-41, a resolution to declare the city manager as a critical infrastructure worker and/or a worker necessary to conduct minimum basic operations during the COVID-19 pandemic. I did not put this forward, but I do agree with it. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. So Mayor, it's moved and supported, open for discussion. Any council member? Councilwoman Spicer.
So you didn't put this forward, so who did?
No, I did not.
Who did?
Mayor Pro Tem Williamson did.
Hi.
Oh,
I did.
okay, so explanation, sir?
So I just wanted to go the extra mile locally and make sure that we made it clear that we would like the leader of the city to be here and be present as we navigate through COVID-19. The governor has already made it clear in several iterations of her executive order that that is perfectly appropriate. As the leader of a city, he or she in that capacity is and can be deemed an essential worker. So I just think it was important that council made it clear that that was the expectation and the rule going forward.
Okay.
Okay. I lost my screen there for a minute. Okay. Any other council? Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. City manager, can you speak to that?
Thank you. First of all, I'm not sure what was meant by the city manager being present. The city manager's been present, locked up in my house like everybody else, here in the city of Albion. I live at 802 Huntington Boulevard, for anybody who may not already know. My neighbors already know. But I don't think the council read the city manager's reports from April 6th, April 20th, May 4th. My administrative directive of April 27th, which was emailed to the city council and all employees of the city, or my memo to council and staff on July 6th, all of which indicated that the city manager is a critical infrastructure worker or an essential services worker to the extent that my work cannot be performed remotely. That's in accordance with the governor's executive orders. There is work that I do at City Hall because it cannot be done remotely. But because of the technology that I have, a lot of my work is able to be done from home. I actually have a remote connection to the city's financial system and everything right from my laptop here at home. But there is some work that cannot be performed remotely. And the work that cannot be performed remotely, I do at City Hall. I have to sign documents. There are certain items that I have to retrieve at City Hall. There are the occasional meeting that I have to have at City Hall for one reason or another, even though we make sure that we are complying with the governor's executive orders when that's necessary. But in all of those documents, I made it clear, especially the April 27th administrative directive, which specifically states that the city manager is a critical infrastructure worker. So I'm surprised why this resolution came up and why it's necessary. There is no question that the city manager, as the chief administrative officer of the city, is a critical infrastructure worker, an essential worker, someone who is responsible for the basic operations of the city government. I didn't even know that that was a question. And especially in my communications with council, I thought I had made it clear that that was the case. I do not believe that this resolution is necessary.
Comments by other council members? Councilman Clark.
So I guess from the city aspect, as far as people, they don't feel like you're accessible or that you're available. I've had several comments made to me that you're not on a regular basis. And I just, with it being COVID, I haven't said much or, addressed it or anything because of the fact. But I guess if moving forward, that's maybe something that you need to do more of because they don't think you're around. I mean, I'm talking from every district, even the district that you live in. Because I'm an Albionite, been here all my life, people talk to you, comfortably and share things comfortably with you, whether you're in the district or not. I take things in and, I focus on them and then I just share the information. So that's just for your ears to know.
Yeah, again, I don't know what you've heard. I am in the community all week. I go up to my house up in Commerce, well, actually now Waterford on the weekends. Sometimes my husband comes down here. I am here all week. I drive out in the community. I've been watching the Irwin Avenue project. When citizens have concerns, like Friday night, I was just talking to a citizen on the phone about a concern about an open cut street, Michigan Avenue, and looked at that on Sunday morning. So My cell phone number is on my webpage on the city's website, so people can call me on my cell phone. And so, again, I think, am I at City Hall 5 days a week? No, that would not be complying with the governor's executive orders, because a lot of my work can be done from home. And the governor's executive orders say, if you can perform your work from home, you should be performing your work from home. It just so happens, probably 90% of the work that I do can be performed at home. But I drive out in the community, I look at things, I drive downtown to see how things are going. When we had the flooding issue with the Kalamazoo River, I was dealing with that. And I encourage people, if they have concerns that need attention, call me on my cell phone. My cell phone number is on the website. My cell phone number is 517-435-9561. I love talking to our citizens and trying to address their concerns. But again, I think this resolution is unnecessary.
Okay. So, Councilwoman Reed, we haven't heard from you yet.
Okay. I am going to have a young man call you tomorrow who has been bugging me about a tree that he is afraid is going to fall on his house that is on city property.
Okay.
I gave him your number. He called you 3 times, he said, and you never answered. He came down to City Hall, but the door was locked, and I told him no, he could not get into City Hall. And so I am going to again tomorrow tell him that you are still taking calls and have him call you.
Yes, definitely give him my cell phone number.
Mayor Pro Tem Williamson.
Okay, so I brought this resolution forward because there's a pattern here, and the only tools that council has to make anything happen or make anything clear is to pass a resolution and create a policy or set the standard for something. And the pattern here is that there's some inaccessibility to the city manager at City Hall. Yes, I know that I can pick up the phone and I can call Mr. McCleary, but I am a council member who has a say on his performance evaluation. That's a different type of relationship. For the most part, the rumblings and the complaints have been that the city manager is inaccessible. The city manager is not at City Hall. The city manager can't be reached even when he's not at City Hall. And that's not 1 or 2 people. I have been quite generous from the beginning with this tenure about being patient and letting people find their groove, and COVID-19 coming in and getting everyone out of whack. But it shouldn't be me that says, Mr. McCleary, I have someone calling you tomorrow. Make sure you answer that call. Well, of course you're going to perform and answer that call. I want every call answered. I want every email responded to. I want optimal performance by the chief executive of the city. I mean, this is as stern a reminder as we can give to the only employee that we have as council to say, you're essential. We expect high performance. And I think it's warranted given the last performance appraisal. I mean, there is room to improve and to be present even when we can't be face to face with each other in person. And so then I want to point out that I have a little bit of a frustration when you say, well, the governor said I'm essential, but this resolution is completely unnecessary. Well, if you're essential, then this resolution is basically affirming what the governor has already said. So then why would there be any sort of fight put up to pass in this? So that's where I stand on this. I think it's important that during this time, especially, real leaders are showing their true colors and their abilities to lead. And I'm expecting the leader of our city to step up to the plate and make some big things happen. That's what we want you to do. It's what we've asked you to do since you've been here. And this resolution is just saying to do the bare minimum. So I hope that we can all join in support of wanting to at least get the bare minimum done to move the city forward.
I think it is telling that Mayor Pro Tem Williamson put this forward. I absolutely am support of it. In how I'm perceiving your reaction is, well, this isn't necessary because I know I'm essential and I put it in my reports. So go beyond that It's not just a categorization. We are communicating. If this resolution passes, then it is the will of council that you make some adjustments. You're more present, you're more involved, more engaged. And I will absolutely echo what Councilwoman Clark said. I hear it from lots of employees too. And what Councilwoman Reed is saying. I get people that said, oh, I've tried to get hold of the city manager, and you get some emails from me in time where I forward them to you. And I have no problem doing that. So if you absolutely agree, great. Look beyond then why we are here. Okay. We are frustrated. We are not satisfied with your performance, and we are trying to communicate clearly and give you policy and guidance so that you will be successful, so the city will be successful. So seeing no other comments by council, Mr. McCleary, do you wish to respond?
I do not.
Thank you. All right. Assistant City Manager, would you please read the roll?
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed, and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay, next item, Downtown Development Plan and Tax Increment Financing Plan, setting a public hearing for August 17th, 2020. I move that we schedule a public hearing on August 17th, 2020. Is there support?
Support.
Okay. Any comments or questions by council? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, it passes. All right. Next item is opening of the Albion tree dump. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, I am not as skilled as you or Mayor Pro Tem Williamson when it comes to writing things as resolutions. I just write as I talk. As you can see from this, it's basically the tree dump was closed down almost as a knee-jerk reaction to the environmental agency's report on the composting side. And again, one of our biggest things tonight, to the frustration of the citizenry, and I'd like to have the part where we can dump woody items, shrubbery, and tree parts, things of that nature, that can be taken in and deposited and burned by the city, all legally. We would like to have the tree dump open for that. I've included in there exactly the wording from the city website. When is the tree dump open? This comes from the city website, but the tree dump has not been open. I've had many constituents want to get, piles, myself included, if you've looked at my yard, piles of shrubbery, that have been chopped down, and don't want to burn it because that's actually against ordinance to do that. So we need a place to take it. And our tree dump is not in bad condition. There's really nothing wrong with the part where shrubbery and tree parts are burned. The part that was actually closed is further back into the back of the tree dump, where all of the composting and decomposition material is, that's waiting to be screened so that it can be removed from the tree dump. So again, as the mayor had mentioned earlier, if this is something that the DPW feels they cannot do, which is 4 hours, 2 Saturdays a month, I'm sure that we could get a civil group that would be more than happy to man the gate. Thank you.
Other comments, questions by council? So I'll ask City Manager Clear if you'll take a look at that and get back with council on, is that something we can move forward with?
Sure. I just want to clarify though that the tree dump wasn't closed because of a decision of the city. The tree dump was closed because Eagle required us to close it.
They required you to close part of it.
Because of the yard waste, the leaves, the
Right.
compost.
Which is the back half of the dump, not
Yeah.
the trees are disposed.
My understanding is that we are very close to being able to open the tree dump for tree limbs and other woody material, as you had indicated. So I will follow up with Mr. Lurkey and find out when we can get that reopened. But I just want to make it clear to the council that it is not a matter of the Department of Public Services not wanting to reopen it or that they don't have the capacity to reopen it. It's a matter of making sure that we are in compliance with the Eagle's requirements. But I will check with Mr. Lurkey and see if we can get a schedule on when we can get it reopened.
Thank you. Okay, next item is Dalrymple, Crandall, and Orchard Streets. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more just information. I want to put the bug in the ear, as it were. As you can read through there. During the past couple of years with the redo of Irwin, which yay, the pavement was going down today. But with the redo of Irwin, the big trucks and the construction equipment, Dalrymple, Orchard, and Crandall as egress and entrance points to get in and out of the construction area. These are streets that were not designed to handle this type of weight. And if you go down any of these streets, you can see where they're breaking down and buckling. So I want to, and of course, I'm not asking that anything be done this year because we've already committed to the 5 streets in first precinct through 2021. But please understand, I will be bringing these streets back to the forefront after 2021 into the 2022 year, if I'm still here, because they, along with Eaton Street, have all been broken down because of detourism and construction traffic. So just wanted to bring that forward, make it known, and I thank you for your time. I yield.
Right. Next item, speed limit and markings on Michigan Avenue. I believe Mayor Pro Tem Williamson asked for this to be on the agenda this evening.
I did. I requested at the last meeting. I also requested some information from the city about what's been looked at and done on that. I didn't see that included in the packet. I'm more than happy to move this to another meeting, especially given the time. I also want to take this moment to say it would be nice if we could reach out to our state officials, Representative Hadsma, Representative Bison. Maybe it's time we get them on Michigan Ave to take a look at, especially down by the college in the residential portions of Michigan Ave. Maybe seeing is believing for them, and we can maybe get some nudging at MDOT to help us make some changes to make that a little bit safer. And then I will mention I also have been talking to Chief Kip about some things that Albion Public Safety can do to help try to curb speeding and some of the activity that happens on Michigan Ave. And he's been very, very helpful in doing that. So I want to thank you for that, but that's still a major concern, especially after that accident last year. So I yield.
Okay.
So
Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. Councilman Williamson, what exactly was the concern about Michigan Avenue? That what is it, speeding or what was it?
Oh yes, definitely speed. The incredible amounts of speeding that take place on Michigan Ave, especially from about Clark Street all the way down past the middle school. That whole stretch is a concern for many residents who live on that street about how fast cars are moving through there. And given the proximity to the college and some of the traffic around the college area, and then that professor that was hit by a car last year, I think it'd be important for the city to take a look at what we can do to curb speeding and unsafe driving practices through that area. There's not a lot we can do all on our own because it's a state highway, and MDOT controls that. And there's some intricacies in dealing with MDOT that you don't, some unintended consequences if you involve them too quickly. So I'm hoping we can do something to start addressing the speed concerns on that road. That's all. And we can discuss this at another meeting when we have more information in front of us.
Okay. I live on that stretch, so I was just wondering what you were talking about. So, all right, good deal.
Next item, vacant properties and rodent infestation. Councilwoman Reed.
I can put this on, I can do this next week if you don't mind. My dog is ready to visit outside.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move to, next is future agenda items, and I suggest council members put their future agenda items in writing and forward them to myself, the city manager and the city clerk.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, so we will move to public comments. People addressing the city council, please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. You may comment on whatever you wish. Ask that you not attack individuals, impugn their motives, and be respectful. Kip, who do we have first?
Hello?
Mr. Brown.
Am I unmuted? Oh, okay. Well, one, I just want to thank council for passing the resolution with the corrections that council member Spicer and with the assistance of council member Clark did that, and also for the advocacy there of council member Williamson. I think it's very important. Slavery and racism is America's original sin, and the effects of that continue to the present day. So I think it's great for the community to know that our governing body has gone on the record as saying that racism is not tolerated and we need to deal with the effects of it in our community. I also wanted to just ask the council whether they do it through Zoom or in person, what's the status of the training for diversity, racial sensitivity, racism. I know that was discussed, but I think the council still needs to go through with that, and as well a training regarding again the roles of the mayor and the council members and the manager and the council member form of government. I think that Attorney Scott Smith did a terrific job. He's come to the city at least twice, if not 3 times. And actually his training has been incorporated into the council rules. I mean, there's a whole section in the beginning of the council rules that describes what the roles are. So I think it's a form of divided authority where the council makes the policy, but they're not paid the full-time jobs, and the manager gets the full-time job, but he doesn't make the policy. But he also has the personnel report to him or her. So I think the council needs to really get a grasp on that, because I think that's been an ongoing issue about understanding those roles. The last thing I would say is that, well, I'll leave it at that. Thank you all. Good night.
Sonia Brown, 713 Orchard Drive. I'll be brief. I just want to commend council for your unanimous vote tonight on the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis here in Albion. As far as opening City Hall, I trust wholeheartedly in our city manager's judgment. I work for the county and we are not interacting with the public right now. My position and my coworkers, we all work from home and anticipate doing so for quite a while now. This pandemic is serious. And I also I know from our standpoint, my employer, you could possibly schedule appointments with residents. I use the Dropbox. I use a money order. I don't put cash in the Dropbox. I can track my payment through a money order. Is it possible for payments to be made online through the city's website? I mean, there are ways to address the issues that have been raised tonight without exposing people to the potential of contracting COVID-19. I too have had several friends die from COVID, especially in the Detroit area, and actually a classmate here locally. So I think it is serious and it needs to be taken serious, and we need to trust the judgment of our leadership and our city manager, and I do that. So again, thank you for the resolution. It was great discussion tonight, long meeting. So I'm going to end with that, and have a great week.
Do you have any other members of the public that wish to make a public comment this evening?
I don't believe so. And it doesn't appear the county commissioner is still on, so no.
No, the county commissioner communicated with me earlier today. He had one of those rare times he had a schedule conflict that he could not juggle sufficiently to be here. We'll move to the city manager's report.
Your Honor, the City Council received the City Manager's report with the latest COVID-19 update and the executive orders that we are currently operating under. We continue to urge our citizens to stay home, stay safe, wear masks in enclosed public spaces, socially distance, and use hand sanitizer to the greatest extent possible to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Council, I provided you with a copy of the Irwin Avenue Reconstruction Project progress meeting minutes from last Friday. We continue to move along with that project, and it should be wrapping up shortly. We have our new code enforcement officer who has started work and is in the process of training on code enforcement processes, procedures, and documentation. We are thrilled to have Liz join our team. I have made an offer of employment to an individual for the Public Services Director position. We are still in discussions on an employment agreement. And that person will be coming out to do a visit and in the community and to talk further about the agreement. The city has completed the installation of the new purchase order software. Employees received training on the purchase order system last week, and we will be completing the implementation process for the purchase order system over the next few weeks. As council is aware, the city has submitted an application for the first round of funding under the CARES Act to seek reimbursement for public safety payroll costs for the period of April and May of this year in the amount of $237,000. If awarded funding, we expect the funds to be dispersed by September 18th. Also, if additional funding is available, round 2 applications would be due in early September. And just a note to the council that I will be out of town on Monday, July 27th, and the week of August 3rd through August 7th. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Questions by council for the city manager on his report? Mayor Pro Tem Williamson.
Are we adding the city manager's report to the packet after these meetings so that they're public?
I post the reports on the city's website.
Okay, so I can go see all the last reports on the website. Okay, great. And then one more question, just as a question: is there someone sanitizing the lockbox outside of City Hall? Just have to ask.
I do not believe that somebody is sanitizing the drop box.
Okay, well, it's just a high touch surface at this point, so hoping we can get that taken care of.
I will definitely follow up on that.
All right. Thank you. Mayor and council member comments. Any council member wish to make a comment this evening? Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. Let me see if I'm unmuted. Thank you. I just want to thank my colleagues for supporting the resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. We all indeed know that it is, and I just appreciate the support. And I want to thank Councilor Clark for working with me on that. And I appreciate the support of all of my colleagues. You guys are wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Any other council members wish to make a comment this evening? Seeing none, I have just two real quick ones. One is I want to say thank you for the city manager, assistant city manager, getting the permits for Swinging at the Shell, the band concert, getting those approved. That'll be a big plus for the residents, and social distancing will be observed, plenty of spacing there. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So I appreciate everybody's hard work and patience this evening. Very long agenda with a lot of stuff on it, and we got a lot accomplished. And so my hat's off to all of you.
Oh, hey, Mayor.
Yes.
One last comment. The resolution called for a task force. I'd like council to basically discuss that at the next meeting. So if we could have that on the agenda and flush a little bit of that out. I know we won't finalize anything, but maybe we can have some talking points.
So at some point, the ordinance needs to be drafted, so I guess we can include that as part of the discussion.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Motion to excuse absent council members. I received no communication from Councilwoman Lawler. I asked the city manager, assistant city manager, and nobody else did either. Councilwoman Clark.
So I have been keeping in contact with her, and she said she'll be back on the 28th.
And actually, she did text me tonight and say she wouldn't be able to get on, so she wasn't going to make it. So,
motion to excuse.
Yes.
Approve.
Second. Yep.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. We have a motion to
motion to adjourn.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Good night, y'all.
Adjourned.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.